I poured it in my mouth and it just wasn't going down.
My first beer was an IPA, the best IPA I've ever drank, mostly because I brewed it.
If you have a scale that is good for measuring cocaine, you're probably good for measuring hops on cocaine.
You're scaring me.
I think the information is awesome and the audio sucks.
Make some sugary water, throw some yeast in there.
And you're going to drink good beer.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good beer. It's fine.
God damn it, man. Oh, my God. Oh, uh-oh.
Now, live from the Brewing Network studios in Northern California, this is the radio program for home brewers, craft brewers, beer lovers, and beer geeks. It's your only source for live beer radio that brings expert brewers together with, well, expert drinkers. This is the radio program with a head on it. This is The Session.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Session. I'm your host today, Justin Crosley. Joining me, the great Teresa Pasuti.
Hello, everybody.
From Crooked Lane. Bevo is in the studio with us.
Hi.
And nobody else. Well, Beardy's dead, you might remember. JP is out sick or something. I don't know. It's me and you, Teresa, holding down the fort.
I know, and last week you were worried about the gender balance tipping, and now it's totally tipped over.
It's tipped, and you know what? I feel fine.
So we're going to see if you can hang, Justin.
That's right. We still have a great show planned for you today. We're going back to our homebrew roots today.
Nice.
Yeah, we're going to be discussing how to compete and win in homebrew competitions with the two 2019 Ninkasi winners.
Which I think is actually totally applicable to professional brewing as well.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
All the same competition rules apply?
Well, for sure. I mean, the same strategies are there, the same, thoughtful brewing and being appropriate to style and all that stuff.
Sure.
But, actually, I'm a much more successful commercial contest entrant than I was a home brewer.
Is that right?
Yeah, I kind of sucked at home brewing, apparently. I don't know. Or home brewers are just that good.
Right. How long were you a home brewer? I didn't even know this story.
For some amount of years.
You did for a while?
Like 3-4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you entered several...
I entered competitions, and, honestly, it was a little lackluster.
Right.
It's actually kind of a shocker that I've done so well in commercial brewing.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, maybe it's that maybe there was no pressure also in the home brewing side. So...
Oh, no. There is always pressure.
Okay.
I always have pressure on myself.
I see. All right.
Yeah. Highly competitive.
Well, then we'll tie it all together with you can add your insight into how it compares to pro brewing as well for brewers. You have done very well in pro competitions, so I think that'll be good to do. So we're doing that today. Today's show is brought to you today by More Beer. They bring you this session and every one that we do. Go to morebeer.com and check them out. They've got everything you need, and they're good people. And tell them that we sent you, and thank them for making the show free to you for all of these years. So I just got back from Mexico.
Oh, you already went.
I went to Mexico for the weekend for Cerveza Mexico.
Whoa.
Which was, it's a beer competition and beer festival. It was in Mexico City. And I got arrested.
No way.
And I got in a fight with an Uber driver and got a warning from Uber about assault.
Oh, my God.
I was on a little bit of a rampage.
Whoa. You had quite the weekend.
Yeah.
I am so glad you're not still in jail. In a Mexican jail.
Well, had I actually made it all the way to the jail, I would not be here because they were going to keep me for 72 hours.
Oh, man. Okay, so you got to tell the story. Or at least
there's not a whole lot to it other than I was drunk, obviously. I walked out of the bar. They kicked us out of the bar, actually. They were closing.
Oh, they were closing down.
And they
didn't kick you out because you were misbehaving. It was just closing.
No, I wasn't misbehaving until that point.
Okay.
But when they kicked us out, they poured our beer into plastic cups. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to walk home with this. Not okay.
Really?
Didn't make it even across the street, and boop, there's the cop right there.
Oh, no.
Takes me in, arrests me for drinking on the street.
So they poured you a plastic cup, but you're not allowed to drink outside the bar?
Correct. I think you're allowed. I would have been allowed to like stay on their patio.
Oh.
But I own a bar, and I'm like, oh, when places are closed, they're closed. Like, they want you out. Like, I try to be nice to,
off.
you know.
Like, don't
and
stand here.
But I think they would have been fine with me standing on the... And anyway, you can't just walk around the streets of Mexico City with a beer.
Oh, man.
So, you know, it was going to, you know, they kind of arrest me. It's like, it's going to be 72 hours. I'm like, come on. And now, and I'm kind of being a dick about it,
too.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a shakedown. I had to buy my way out.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, it was a shakedown.
Wow.
So now I'm like, you know, all right, well, I'll just start pulling out some money. And the guy gets all pissy. He's like, not here. Like, there's cameras. And I'm like, you're a motherfucker. So I just start marching down the street. And at this point, I'm mad. I think they're going to tackle me.
Like, you jumped out of the cop car and started walking down the street?
I was leaned against it and was like pulling out money. And that's when he's like, no. So I was like, fuck it then. You know, and I just start marching down the street, so that I can pull money out. But I did it in such a way that I'm really surprised I didn't just get like tackled. And anyway, you know, then he's like, there was more of us, and he's like, you know, I want 1,500 pesos a piece, and I'm like, you know, look, I'm going to give you what I have in my pocket, and that's what's going to happen right now. Otherwise, fuck it, take me to jail.
Yeah.
So I paid 2,000 pesos for all three of us to get out, to not have to go to jail for 72 hours.
What is 2,000 pesos?
Yeah.
Not much. $50, less than $50.
Oh, man.
To not go to jail.
That's so crazy. I don't know. I would pay like high hundreds to not go to a jail in Mexico City. But not if I didn't have it in my pocket. I mean,
well, right. And then what are you going to do? And I feel the same, but I was in such a way. I was feeling very, I don't know, I've been a little reckless lately.
Feisty?
Yeah. And part of me wanted to go to jail. Part of me was like, I want to see what this is about.
Yeah, that would be...
And I was pissed off at being shaken down. And so my friend had to shut me up. He's like, you need to shut the fuck up right now. They're going to take us to jail. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck it. Take me to jail for a beer? You know, and I'm like, it was not... He's like, man, you don't shut up.
Your friend is like, voice of reason.
Yeah.
Holy shit. You had a way more exciting weekend than me. Mine was pretty good.
And then the next day, they had a Dios de los Muertos parade that I wanted to go check out, like in the city center. And I got all the way down there, and then it was really hard to get out of there. There was just thousands and thousands of people. And so by the time I finally caught an Uber, the guy, I get in for like a block, and the guy doesn't like the destination. And I'm like, listen, man, I've been trying to get an Uber. I was being cool. I was like, I've been trying to get an Uber for, like an hour, and you got to take me. He's like, no. I don't know, it's all in Spanish. He's like, he wants to go pick up his kid or some fucking, I don't know. But he won't have it. He like pulls over.
No. So he took you right, and then he pulled over and was like, no,
he's like, I'm not taking you. And so now I'm furious, and I get out and I like slam his door, and now he's like getting halfway out of his car yelling at me, and I'm like, yeah, right now, get out of your car. I was so feisty, I don't know what was wrong with me. He gets back in his car and attempts to run me over in the street.
Oh my God.
I mean, he would have barely run me over. I would have landed, whatever. Would have landed on
so like a broken leg, not a full chest crushing.
And I'm like screaming, and again, my friend's like, come on, let's just go get another. So I get a notice from Uber about assaulting their driver. They're like warning me that I could be banned. And I'm like, I did not assault your driver entirely.
Oh my God, Justin.
I almost assaulted your driver.
I'm going to say there was equal parts wrongness happening here.
I'm sure there was. There's probably parts missing.
Oh, man.
I was on a little bit of a rampage.
Jeez, do you need a handler?
Are you on steroids right now?
I'm not. I might have forgotten my antidepressants for the weekend, but that's probably all. I don't know. I just was kind of fired up, and and annoyed.
You think?
Yeah.
So the weekend was great, though. Cerveza Mexico is an awesome event, the coolest event, and we have a ton of listeners down there. I'm like walking through, and everyone's like, Justin. Like, it's so fun to meet all these people, all Latin American brewers.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not talking about Americans that were there. These are all like Latin American brewers. Great beer. Got invited to, because they don't know what kind of person I am traveling, apparently. I got invited to all parts of Mexico, Puerto Vallarta, Colima.
Oh, man.
I got invited to Peru. I got invited to Argentina. Like, all these places.
That's so rad. So my friend is living in Puerto Vallarta right now.
Uh-huh.
And
I met them.
Are you kidding?
I met their brewer. So your friend is not the brewer.
No, my friend is one of my childhood friends who is teaching down there. She's teaching art.
So I met the brewers that are there. They're American expats.
Okay, yep.
They listen to the show. They love you on the show, by the way.
Yeah.
And they mentioned, hey, Teresa knows our friend. She's planning a trip down there.
I'm going to come down there.
She's not planning a trip down there without me.
Well, okay, Justin, January 2020.
You've already got
I don't know. I haven't booked my stuff, but seriously, I'm going to go down there and do a collab with these guys.
Yeah.
And be on the beach.
Yeah, in Puerto Vallarta. Are you kidding?
Freaking amazing.
But you want to go with Justin at this point?
It's an adventure.
I think it would be
God bless,
fun.
bro.
Question mark?
It's definitely an adventure.
I think I could dial him back to just like fun guy, not that guy.
Probably. Maybe.
I don't know. Or we just like park him somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. Just put me on the beach.
Yeah, just put you on the beach.
With a 12-pack and tell me to shut up.
Yeah, just just give him a T-shirt that says "Do not engage."
I should have brought all the brewers' names, but the brewers from Puerto Vallarta said that they will come up here and do a show. So that's cool, and then we'll go down there and visit them. The brewer, the other place, the brewer's called Colima, which I feel like we've talked to on the show at some point or in some way, or someone brought us their beer. Great beer. And then I'm talking to the brewer about how awesome Colima sounds, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm coming to you for the show. You're not coming to me. Forget Concord.
Yeah.
So just met a bunch of really nice people and had some good beer. Beer festivals are a little different there. So this was a little bit like a GABF for Mexico.
Oh, like a big,
so there's a competition, and then there's a big hall.
Uh-huh.
But instead of just a bunch of tables where the breweries are a little bit faceless at GABF, you guys have like banners and stuff, but unless you pay for like an end cap or an extra space, or I don't know what it is, whatever the deal is. Here, every brewery has a full-on booth.
Oh, yeah.
They set up a bar. They set up a whole thing. You get to see all their branding. It's their staff pouring for you, and you pay for each beer.
Oh, okay.
But it's like
so
nothing.
you can have a decent pour. You don't have that 1 ounce ridiculous pour.
Correct. You get to choose between. Well, actually, each brewery can choose what they want to pour you. So there's there's an event glass which was probably only like maybe a 12-ounce glass, something like that. Or you could have gotten the bigger one, like a shaker pint, Mm-hmm. And then each brewery chose, like, you could either pay for different sizes, or they decided. Like, some breweries you could buy a 4-ounce pour, and others you had to buy at least 8 ounces, and some 16 and whatever.
Oh,
and
wow.
you just paid for it, but it's pretty cheap. Like, I would say the most I paid for a beer the whole weekend, including at the festival, was like $3.
Yeah.
Once you do the pesos conversion.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get like a festival pass and then walk around and fill your glass. Like, that's not,
right.
It's a little
right. You
different.
don't pay for the whole thing.
Which, by the way, is fairly unique to the U.S. anyway, I think. I know there are other places like that I've been to, but I think like the Great British Beer Festival, you kind of pay for your samples, and this one you pay for your samples or your pints or whatever.
Well, and for the breweries, I'm assuming they actually make the money.
Keep the money.
Yeah. I mean, so all the fests that we do in the U.S., they're always like, you donate your beer for something, and then you're just trying to get marketing out of it. But
right.
When you get involved in so many festivals, especially for little tiny breweries, it's like you're giving away all this beer, and you're kind of like, well, I got to kind of dial back the whole festival thing a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty awesome, actually.
It was cool.
Yeah.
So my
Sounds
favorite,
super fun.
and there, I had a lot of good beer. So please forgive me if I don't mention your name. But my favorites were Colima. Just every style they had was good. And Insurgentes, which I think is right there out of Mexico City. They also made some killer beer. Hoppy, awesome American-style IPAs and hazies and you name it. Everybody, almost everybody had good beer.
So how many breweries do you think were involved?
Well, I heard that there were about 1,100 entries into the competition. And I think that's probably among, I want to say something like somewhere between 300 and 400 breweries. I had the website open.
That's awesome. I mean, that's probably like JBF used to be in the 90s sometime, right?
Yeah, and so beer is growing up there pretty rapidly. This was, it's a whole thing. I'm going to put in my date of birth. This was their 10th year doing it.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's grown quite a bit. The competition side certainly has. And then they do the awards the night before the event starts. So that's on Thursday night. That's the night I got there. It's the only night I didn't get in any trouble. And then the event starts Friday. But by then, every brewery who won in the awards the night before has, they make them like an official placard that's at their booth.
So you go around and have all
you
the
go around and
winners.
you try them. Where like at JBF, it's cool. Especially if you're in the Saturday member session, you get to kind of go do that, but you got to rush around. You got to look through the list and go, wait, who won? Mm-hmm. Here, it's labeled on every brewery's booth with the same banner. Like every brewery gets the same banner. So you know what's up, and what they won for. So that was cool.
Yeah.
I would just, after a little while, especially if you're going to pay for beer, you just kind of go around and you go, oh, they won a medal. I better try that one. Mm-hmm. Made it easier to pick, too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
It was fun. It's probably good I didn't go to jail. I wouldn't be here. I would have missed my flight yesterday.
Yeah.
It was also a whole fiasco getting there. Which, the world was against me. I probably should have known. Other than the fact that it all worked out fine, I, booked a flight a few weeks ago on Kayak. By the way, fuck you, Kayak. Don't even bother sponsoring my show. And I get confirmation, but I didn't get, seats assigned. So I left on Thursday. Last Monday, I go check, and I just log in, and they're, my whole itinerary is canceled. This is canceled. I call Kayak. I'm like, hey, what happened? We don't know. Call the airline. Call the airline. Book. Okay. And I said to him, too, I said, you and I both know what the airline's going to say to me. They're going to say, call you.
Yeah.
Because I booked it through you. And she's like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Call the airline. And they're like, we don't know. So, no, nothing.
Oh, no.
So this is on Monday. Now I'm like, well, now I'm not going to be able to go. I look up a flight real quick. It's twice the price.
Yeah.
But then by Tuesday, I was like, man, I really want to go. I was had my heart set on it. So I found a cheap flight. I found the same flight direct from San Francisco to Mexico City through Aeromexico. Go on there. I booked the whole thing. I put my credit card information in. I press submit. It's processing, error. Try again. Oh, shit. So I go back, and now
we already have a reservation for this card.
What? I know something. So I go back, and now that flight's not available. No direct flight.
Oh, of course.
But I got something close with the connection, so I do the whole thing. This time I enter a different credit card just in case. I don't know. Maybe I didn't pay my bills. Submit, processing, error. Oh. So I go look at my credit card. I got charged for both. I go to my email. I have an itinerary for both. All right, no big deal. I'm keeping my cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call Aeromexico and tell them what happened.
Uh-huh.
I call them up. I'm like, hey, your website glitched out. Like, yeah, no problem, sir. Give us a couple minutes. They come back. We cannot refund one of your flights because they're not identical. It wasn't a duplicate charge. And I'm like, listen to me. It's not identical because your website fucked up. And when I went back, the flight wasn't available. But it's the same person on the same day going to the same goddamn place. So it's obvious that I wouldn't have just bought myself 2 tickets.
Yeah.
Can't help you. You have to send an email to customer service. An email. There's no number. There's no number for this sort of thing. I sent an email. Nothing. Call my credit card company. I'm like, look, they won't talk to me. I got to dispute this charge. They're like, cool. We'll do that. It's still pending. Once it's done. Fine. A little while later, I get a call from my credit card company. There was a charge in Mexico on your card for 5 cents. Are you in Mexico? No, but I did reserve a hotel, but I chose to pay when I get to the hotel.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, somebody physically ran your card in Mexico.
Oh, my God.
So, and I'm like, are you sure? Because I'm going to Mexico. It's kind of a... They're like, no, someone has a physical copy of your card that they ran in Mexico. So we have to... Are you in Mexico? No, I'm not. Then we have to cancel your card. You can't cancel my card because it's the only card I have that doesn't have international fees. I need it. Also, I have reservations.
And you are leaving tomorrow. Like, you can't
I'm now leaving the following day. I'm literally leaving, and they're like, well, it won't affect your reservations, but we have to cancel. We're canceling the card. Like, that's just what it is. Okay. I'll take out a bunch of fucking pesos and pay in cash. Like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
By the way, good thing I did, now that we know I almost got arrested.
Oh, yeah.
Also, of all the cash I took out, I only took a fraction with me a day, knowing that I could get arrested and have to bribe, and I don't want to give them all, 8,000 pesos or whatever the fuck I had in my pocket. Anyhow.
Oh, my God.
So I get on my flight, okay? And I get to my hotel, which is in the middle of I don't know where, because I'm cheap, and I just get some random, kind of a hotel, kind of an Airbnb, kind of a something in between. Uber drops me off there, drives away. My room has been canceled.
That was the 5-cent charge, maybe?
Yeah, they were trying to, just see, I don't know what. Canceled.
They're like, no, this isn't legit.
Now...
Oh, my God.
It's not only Cerveza Mexico in Mexico City, it's the Formula One Mexico City Grand Prix weekend. So every room in Mexico City, and there's a lot of rooms in Mexico City, is booked.
Wow. So did you just buy a sombrero and, lean against the wall somewhere?
At this point, I'm like... I live in Mexico City now. I don't know what.
Holy shit.
Luckily, a good friend of mine from White Labs, they were down there too. That was the start of this trip. In fact, it's Pablo who does a show on the Brewing Network called Entre Cervezas. Luckily, he was there too for work and had an extra bed in his hotel room. Otherwise, I was... And by the now, at this point, it's comical if it's not so annoying.
Yeah.
The whole thing was just...
Well, in the benefit of hindsight, it's funny.
And that I didn't end up in jail, and that I didn't get run over in the street.
You didn't have to sleep on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get mugged.
Right.
Your credit card got canceled. Your flight got canceled.
Yeah.
You can't get reimbursed. It's
now the remaining thing is fighting with the credit card company about this reimbursement. You know? Meanwhile, by the way, I'm getting... this drives me insane. I'm getting emails from both Kayak and Aeromexico asking me how my flight was.
Oh, God.
I'm getting emails from Hotels.com asking me how my hotel was. And I'm like, oh, you motherfuckers are just poking the bear now.
Like you care, Kayak. Yeah.
No wonder you wanted to get into a fight.
I started out a little aggro.
Yeah. It just all come together.
Yeah.
I'm kind of pissed off right now. Is there anyone causing trouble out there?
Yeah. And I did realize at the end, so my friends were like, you've got some pent-up aggression in there, man. I don't think they've seen me quite like this, but I was like, I don't know. Things aren't going great, and this is fucked, and fuck them. I ended up having a wonderful time, believe it or not. I have plenty to complain about, which is kind of fun, but... anyway, the event was superb. Kudos to Cerveza Mexico, who puts the thing on. And all the brewers. Boy, you guys are just making some good beer down there. So now they want me to go to the Ensenada Beer Festival, and I'm like, I don't know, man.
Well, I think you need to just drive your motorhome and
I thought about
park on the beach somewhere.
No, I think you should go, but maybe just book directly, like go into the airport and buy your flight from the counter. Like go that route.
And then my friends from White Labs are like, well, that's why we never book through this. And I'm like, all right, well, fuck you guys too. First of all, I got like last minute details, so I needed to book through, cheapo whatever, like any cheap thing I could find, otherwise I can't go. So I get it. If you can go straight through United or straight through, like, I know. But I didn't need to hear that at that moment. That's why we never book like that. All right, Whitey.
Thank you, Mr. Helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like, I'm not dealing with White Labs money here.
Just have White Labs book your flight.
Yeah,
just book my flight. I ended up staying in their hotel anyway.
I know. It was probably better for them because of that.
Yeah.
Just be like, just make me your +1.
Exactly. Well, wonderful people at White Labs too, of course. But the whole thing, the whole thing was fun overall. Just a lot of mess. I don't listen to signs from the universe, apparently. Because if I had ended up in the Mexican jail, it would have been so painfully obvious that I should have listened to the universe before going, right? It would have been like, well, shit. 3 canceled flights later, you should have just stayed home.
I mean, I'm assuming at this point, I'm not sure who your call would have been.
Down there? Oh, yeah. Nothing. I don't think you get a call.
And if you did, would you have called me and, like...
Well, and that was my...
What happened?
That was Pablo talking me off the ledge, too, because he's like, listen to me. The number that they're throwing out right now is 72 hours, which is about 12 to 18 hours after your flight home, man. Yeah. So... I think you ought to shut up. Because that guy, I was like, fuck it, take me. I'll go tonight. I'll go right now.
I love Pablo.
Oh, man.
It was already 3 or 4 a.m. I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to sleep very well at home either. Put me in jail. But he's like, 72 hours, bro.
Yeah. Oh, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you. You made it through that.
Thank you.
You were just like skirting the edge.
Yeah.
Just like riding the crest of the wave.
I really was.
And somehow you pulled it out without getting hammered.
You made it through. Had a great time with the locals. Every local I met were they're the sweetest people, except for the fucking Uber driver. Everyone, the nicest people. Helpful anytime I needed direction. Like, how do I get here? Give me a good food recommendation. Oh, I had some of the best Mexican food on the planet. Which sounds, okay, obviously you're in Mexico. Listen, I grew up on Mexican food. And not just like from the taqueria. When I was a kid in L.A., all my friends and all my neighbors were the kids my age. They were first generation, right? So I'm eating with their families day in and day out. I grew up on good Mexican food. Oh, man, did I have good Mexican food down there. So good. You know what's dumb, though? Don't punch in good on Yelp. Don't say best Mexican food. Because it turns out it's just food in Mexico. You have to put it best.
Like best carnitas or whatever.
You got to put in a thing.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense.
Just little travel tip from Crossley.
That's my favorite.
Don't Yelp best Mexican food.
Okay, so we got don't scream at the cop to put you in jail. Don't Yelp Mexican food.
Don't drink outside of the perimeters.
Don't walk around with your plastic cup leaning against the wall with your sombrero.
Yeah. I would recommend fighting with your Uber driver, though. Fuck that guy.
Oh, yeah, except for the whole, getting run over.
That was the thing.
I
think if it weren't that my friend who was being nice was also in front of the car is the only reason he didn't run me over, because he would have had to run us both over.
What were you doing in front of the car?
Well, at this point, I'm now crossing the street.
Oh, you're crossing in front of him.
Yeah, and he's like, and comes right up to me. And then now I'm going after him again. It was, yeah, he's just getting his little ass out of that car.
Holy crap.
Anyway.
You have to tell me how this ends up with Uber.
Yeah, we're going to have to...
Well, Uber was just a warning. Uber was just a warning. It basically said, we've been informed that this happened. Just to let you know, we can cancel your account permanently.
I want to see what your Uber rating is now.
I bet my rating is better than his.
I guarantee you my rating is better than his.
Last time mine was better, right?
Yeah,
let's look them up right now.
It was totally better.
Okay. Not by much.
I was like, what the hell? I'm the nicest.
Let's see. How was your trip? Oh, my last trip was good. That guy was good. He was really good.
Yeah, don't tip the guy who almost ran you over.
No, but I got to tip this guy. He was good. Okay, let's see. I'm still pretty solid. It might not have come through yet. I am a 4.91.
Oh.
Are you about... Oh,
4.91.
same. So maybe I was like, before I was like a 9.3 or something. I got knocked down a little peg.
Wow. What is it going to take?
What do you, Beav?
I don't even know how to find my Uber rating.
You just
press the ellipses in the top left.
I can't believe Justin still
after an
has
assault.
a 4.91.
Maybe it hasn't come through yet.
No,
I'm a 4.86.
You know why? It's probably because you don't tip or because Sam.
No, it's because of Sam. 100%. I always tip.
Oh, you do?
Are you tied to Sam?
No, well, no. He
but
has
if he's
his
in
own,
the car with her,
his own.
He has.
Oh,
but also,
yeah.
And also, like, he'll be somewhere, and I'm like, you need to come home. I'm sending an Uber.
Okay.
Because he can't figure out that. He's so drunk he can't figure that out.
So he's that guy. You had to Uber him home, and it reflects poorly on you.
Mm-hmm.
Shit.
All right.
Yeah, I understand how that can happen.
Well, I don't have a lot of announcements. So today's Mexico story was brought to you today by Drake's Brewing Company. You can go to drinkdrakes.com, who is holding their Friendsgiving on November 25th. They're doing that with their friends from Ghost Town Brewing, Flatland, Temescal, and Hen House. And they're putting on a big old meal with a bunch of good beer. You can go to drinkdrakes.com and click on their events page. Got a lot of good beer they're going to be pouring. So check out the Friendsgiving. If you want to support us, do your Amazon shopping by clicking the Amazon link on our homepage. You can also subscribe and join the BN Army, which enters you to win a chance to win $100 to More Beer in the More Beer monthly donation giveaway. The more you donate, the more chances you get to win each and every month. You can get updates and information over on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Send your feedback to feedback@thebrewingnetwork.com, where you can send your show ideas as well. So, no Twitter game today because both our Twitter game people are gone.
I know. I might have to figure
learn
out how to use Twitter.
Might have to show you how to do this thing. But we do have some feedback. Feedback's brought today by the Beer Law Center. Go to beerlawcenter.com and John can take care of your brewery filings or protect your trademark and registrations like he does mine. He's a good guy. All right. Jake Dickman writes in. Because we had an email about Jake just last week, as a matter of fact. But that's not what he was writing. He says, Justin, you might officially be a talent-having hack. Congrats on your accomplishments this weekend. He's not talking about Mexico. He's talking about our participation in Sierra Nevada's Harvest Festival. He says, I know that working with Ken Grossman has been a goal of yours for a long time and for good reason, and you finally did it. And he says he thought my moderation and the attendance of the BN crew in general made this year's fest an even bigger success than it already was. So great seeing Teresa in person and Beardy, even though he couldn't see me, and very nice to see JP from a distance. Congrats again from Jake Dickman from Secret Trail Brewing Company, of course. We did have fun.
Yeah,
we
did.
Yeah.
And Jake is a super solid guy.
Yeah. I just got the audio back from the sound people there, so I'm hoping to post the 2 videos I have. I just have to sync up their audio with it, so stay tuned to our YouTube for that. So this is about our Alvarado Street interview last week. Angry.
Oh, and somebody is angry over this?
Yeah. His or her name is G-Spot.
All right, G-Spot.
Hi, all.
What do we do this time?
I hope you're having a great week. I like when the angry starts like that. Are you really hoping I'm having a great week? I mean, so far, I didn't go to jail. I just want to let you all know that I really hated that fucking interview you guys did with those chode chompers at Alvarado Street. I was hoping JP would be more organic about them blatantly stealing intellectual property, since he's so adamantly against it. Instead, they used the BS excuse, it was a joke, bro. Come the fuck on, man. That shit ain't right. Shit is ironic when Justin constantly bitches about people stealing the hop grenade. He says, I mean, you guys did say some shit about that, but it still doesn't justify them stealing 90% of their can art just to get sales and publicity. I mean, seriously, even one of the dude's nicknames wasn't original. Biggie, get the fuck out of here, he says. Ooh, angry one. We just like having fun, bro, is a sad excuse, bro. Biggest cop-out. You guys are usually more real, especially when you're so passionate about something. JP tried to stand for his beliefs, but I get it. Be professional. But he was a professional bitch during the session.
Whoa.
I hope you all have a nice weekend, though. Best from G-Spot.
I don't feel like the name G-Spot is very original.
Yeah, that is definitely not a invention.
Mm-hmm.
Although perhaps they feel it is.
Well, in some ways, it's not really our place to make our guests feel uncomfortable in the studio. So I do have to mention that. And maybe that's a cop-out. But you know what? It kind of is what it is. I happen to like their beer, and I like them as people, and I didn't want to not have an interview with them because I would have to berate them about their branding. Now, I did bring it up. I also don't think that 90% of their beers their can art is copywritten material. I more find their stuff to be puns and pop culture associations, which I think I was saying. Now, I'm not saying there's not a can or two in there where like a direct logo was taken, but I did go looking through. So in other words, if somebody took like a rotten artichoke grenade and put it on a can to be funny, I would have less say than them actually using my hop grenade, that, you know, and I don't know that I saw a bunch of stuff where they did that.
Isn't that just considered parodies?
Parody.
It's like a parody law. It's like a thing.
It is, unless you're making money on it by selling something where you're using brand recognition and like violating copyright. I just would find it... I'm guessing the reason they haven't been directly sued is that they haven't actually violated copyright yet. They just kind of play on words and pay homage. Now, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because it's not really my business, but I do agree with you that if I say they're allowed to do whatever they want and I get mad at people stealing my hop grenade, that's hypocritical, but I did find it different. In other words, like I don't see them putting like, I don't know, what's an example? Like 806 on a can. Firestone's most popular beer with great branding is 805. If they used like exactly the same branding and put 806 on it, that's theft. I didn't really see any of that in their stuff.
Well, I feel like if they were the only ones doing it and they really stuck out as sore thumbs by being the one brewery that keeps doing that, but of all the offenders in that category, they are not the worst by any stretch. And then, you know, all these beers, like a lot of breweries that do different beers all the time, like this stuff will happen and then it goes away. Yeah. So it's, you know... It's not the approach that I've taken, but I'm not going to tell somebody they suck because they're drawing on pop culture references and they're drawing on stuff that is part of our lexicon as, you know, children of the 80s and 90s and maybe 70s. So
that's what But let me finish by saying this. Even if it makes me a hypocrite, I can accept that. I want to stick up for JP for a second. JP is a professional, and he knows that I would have been very upset with him if he were to blast them for blatantly doing whatever he thought they may be doing, whether they're doing it or not. So, in other words, if JP was particularly silent about it, you can blame me for that, too. Because he knows I wouldn't allow it. Like, I would have been very upset for making our guest uncomfortable. And so, in other words, I'm taking full responsibility for anything that was not said if JP felt stronger about that than came across. That's on me.
Well, and maybe the good news is you know, maybe JP's not the asshole everybody makes him out to be. Because he got a perfect opportunity to be an asshole and he wasn't. Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's an asshole, but... So, anyway, G-Spot, I do not mind you writing that email in, and I respect your opinion, and that's the best explanation I can give you. So, thanks for writing in. All right, Patrick the Brewer writes in, Hey, Brewcasters, a longtime listener since I started homebrewing 10 years ago. I've learned so much from your programming, can't thank you enough. Quit my day job in Brooklyn 6 years ago after being hired to start a 3-barrel brewery in a restaurant basement. And you guys were there all along the way. Now I'm the head brewer at Westkill Brewing in the Catskill Mountains of New York. Sounds like a nice place to be. I just won my first GABF medal, a silver in Strong Hazy Pale Ale.
Whoa!
Yeah,
congrats.
That's probably a popular category.
That's huge.
Although I'm surprised that there's a Strong Hazy Pale Ale category. I could not have done it without all the great info that I've learned from the BN, especially Brew Strong, Can You Brew at the session, etc., and the humor that you bring with it to keep me coming back for more. I wanted to write a funny, witty inside joke like Chechnya Ian Titus or something, but I would never have gotten around to it, so instead just a thank you. Well, thanks, Patrick. All right. Now this one's interesting. One more to go.
Can't wait.
Hi, Brewcasters and Bevo. First off, I've got to say that Teresa and Sully are great additions to the session. I'm a long-time listener, first-time emailer, and I've always enjoyed hearing updates on the saga of Dave and Flattail up in Corvallis, Oregon. I'm currently on a multi-state road trip along the West Coast, and after hearing about Dave's new tattoo, wanted to try to meet the legend and give the guy another chance. Per Dave's instructions, I reached out to him in advance to see if he was going to be available to meet up for a beer after work. I received a very brief response asking when I would be stopping by, but when I replied with when I'd be getting to town, there was no answer.
Oh, no.
Undeterred, I rolled into Corvallis and stopped at Flattail for some food and a pint, hoping that I'd catch Dave changing a keg or holding court at the bar. There was no sign of Dave. But I did meet a very nice young couple that ended up letting me park my rig in their front yard for the night. They even cooked me dinner with mushrooms they had foraged earlier in the day and let me borrow some tools for a little roadside maintenance before I left the next day. So it turns out, not every millennial in Corvallis is an asshole, just Dave. Thanks for all the great shows over the years. Signed, Beardy.
Oh, man.
So Beardy apparently tried to meet up with Dave.
Beardy.
And it didn't work.
I can't.
Oh, that was
so beautiful.
blow off. That was amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
I call copyright. That's some trademark infringement right there.
Yeah. Beardy is just trying to get a tattoo on Dave's ass.
Of his own name,
Yeah.
Of his beard. He probably could get one if he just asked.
Maybe he could just get a beard around Roy's tattoo.
Yeah, Ron.
Oh, Ron.
Yeah, is Roy there? Roy might be there too.
Roy.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be a whole list of names.
Also, I wonder which part of this is true. Like, did he end up staying at some random people's house that had foraged for fucking mushrooms earlier that day and made him dinner? Because that seems some hippy-dippy shit right there.
That's some serious hippie shit. I wouldn't put it past him, though.
Right?
You know? Like, he takes risks with his bodily self.
Yeah.
I think we've established that.
Right. So apparently Beardy has made it as far as Corvallis. We know that.
Oh,
that's our update.
Yeah, he was in Bend. I saw the message. He was leaving Bend.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Making his way north.
He's well on his way.
Yeah. It's. I mean, honestly, it's like a day's drive to get to Bellingham. So it's been like a week.
Yeah.
And he's
just taking his time, I think.
Yeah.
I think that from now on we should only communicate with Beardy through feedback.
Yes.
I forbid anyone to have direct interactions with him. He can only communicate with us on air through feedback emails.
And it has to always be like, you can't come out with that it's Beardy. You just have to guess. Like, right, which of the feedback is going to be Beardy.
Yeah, guess which is Beardy today. It's a good new game, actually.
Oh, that's super fun.
Yeah. All right. I have to get us to a break, but before I do that, I just wanted to remind you that the 21st Amendment's newest seasonal release, Tasty IPA, is out and near and dear, of course, to the Brewing Network heart because it's a collaboration with everyone's favorite brewcaster, Tasty McDole. At 6.8% and 58 IBUs with its straw color, Tasty IPA drinks easily, but isn't necessarily easy drinking. The hop-forward creation spawned originally from early test batches of Tasty's own homebrews features Calypso, Simcoe, Azaka, Amarillo, Citra, Simcoe, Lupulin Pellet, Centennial, Cascade, Equinox, Cascade, Lupulin Powder, Mosaic, and Azaka twice, I guess, just for fun. So it's a super hop salad. Tasty IPA was done as a one-time beer, but was so popular, it's now become part of the 2NA's main beer lineup, and it's their fall seasonal release. So go check it out. It comes in I think I made fun of Sully for this, but it comes in 6-packs and 19.2 ounce cans.
Yes. Taller than your average can.
Taller than your tall boy, right?
Taller than the average.
Is it like a tall?
I think that is. Isn't that the tall boy?
I thought tall boys were 16s.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with all these cans.
Sully, you're probably listening. Bring some of these cans into the studio.
Yeah, he's here next week.
And then we need to I'll grab some other cans and see if we can compare. I thought tall boys were 16. I think we should
feel
change.
Like
19.2 should be called tall women's. That's what we should change it in. If they are bigger,
maybe a tall drink of water.
Tall
drink of beer.
Yeah.
I feel like they're the same height as Crowlers, but they're skinnier.
Skinnier, right?
Maybe.
Sounds about right. All right, go check it out wherever 2NA is sold. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Jeff and Nick about how to enter homebrew competitions and win. Hang in there. It's The Session. We'll be right back.
Tuned into The Session.
Because life's too short to listen to crappy radio.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for listening to my stories about getting arrested. I think we have more good stories for you coming up in this interview. We are now joined by Nicholas McCoy and Jeff Perot from the Homebrew Club of my favorite name of homebrew clubs ever. I think I've told you guys this before. Draft Punk is just my favorite homebrew club name. Oh. It's just the coolest name.
That is so cool.
Simplicity.
Right? And there's a lot of plays on words in homebrewing, but that one is, it's simple and a little bit, rock and roll, which I just kind of like about that. So well done. And the two of you are conjoined, not twins, but conjoined Ninkasi winners.
That's right. I think we're one of the only pairs to have won it.
There have been other pairs in history, but
I think one group won it back in the 90s or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you guys, so you've been homebrew partners for a while, though, I assume?
Yeah. Let's see. I started homebrewing back, it's been about 13, 14 years ago.
Okay.
And it was shortly after that Nick, he and I had been friends before that. Nick, I came over actually to his house one day, and I said, I had this 6-pack of homebrew I made, and it's one of those nerve-wracking things where you're thinking, it's probably going to be awful, will he really like it?
Right.
And I brought it to him, and he's like, dude, this doesn't suck.
Okay.
It's not the worst
Good
thing.
compliment, really. Yeah. Things can be worse.
Yeah, and so long after that Nick actually got into homebrewing as well, and got his first kid. Actually, his then girlfriend, now wife, bought him a homebrew kit. And,
okay. So I got started in this whole mess, too, man. Good job.
Yeah,
good on her.
That's right.
Yeah, the chicks drag you in, and then they're like, damn it, why did we assign him this hobby? Time-consuming and expensive.
Yeah, now you're flying to California for some random podcast.
We got to show him a picture of your garage now.
Oh, yeah, there's no cars or anything. I mean, it's a dedicated brewery. 100%.
The whole garage.
Oh, that is
Did it used to be a place for cars?
Sort of. I mean, we've in Texas we have some really bad weather too. On top of all that,
tornado.
It's not a fire or anything, but
it's kind of gnarly here right now.
We had a hailstorm, and it's we got to pull the cars in the garage.
Yeah, yeah. So you had room for that previously, but now not. Okay.
Now you just have a moving blanket you just throw on top of the cars.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Right.
Hailstorm be damned.
So you two were 2019 Ninkasi winners at the
Actually, 2017 Ninkasi winners.
2017 Ninkasi. Okay, but I met you this year. That's why I'm confused. I met you guys this year.
We were speaking this year at HomebrewCon.
Got
we
it.
spoke
Okay.
in 2018 after we won Ninkasi, and actually we got silver medal 2018 for our mild, which you'll be having here in a little while.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
Okay. Well, I don't normally do this. Usually we kind of bullshit for a little while, but we have one of your beers in my glass, and I just want to try that first. Can we do that?
Sure.
What beer do we have?
So this is the Belgian Wit. The Belgian Wit was the style that one of the first styles I enjoyed brewing quite often. And it was one of those things I brewed again and again and again and again. And, I started entering in competitions, and it was where I first started to get some really good feedback at competitions.
What was your commercial example that made you love this beer before you started brewing it? Just Hoegaarden?
Hoegaarden.
Okay.
Yes.
Great beer, by the way.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, so you just liked the style and then kept trying to brew it.
Correct.
Okay.
And kept trying to brew it, and I thought I was doing well. Started entering into some competitions, and finally got some feedback from it that really helped me immensely, where somebody said, okay, stop using domestic coriander. You're getting some weird celery flavors in this. Find imported Indian coriander if you can, or something else. And so when trying to look for that, found it, and it made a world of difference. Well, Nick was getting back into brewing, and he decided he was going to brew wit too, because he liked mine, but he wanted to kind of tweak it a little bit, and he decided he would enter it in for the first time at the Bluebonnet Brew Off that we have in Irving, which is one of the biggest single-site homebrew competitions in the U.S. And he entered it the first time, and he won first.
Oh, which just pissed you off, didn't it?
Not bitter at all.
We won all these awards and all this stuff over the years, but that's the defining moment.
Right.
Yeah. It was my white whale.
Yeah, it's the thorn in your side. Okay. So what was different about his than yours, do you think?
What it was, and I don't know if you want to talk about your recipe, Nick.
Yeah, it was fine. I just did a slightly different thing, and we went to...
Stay right on that microphone.
We went to Istanbul.
Yeah.
And we got some coriander from the spice market there. And I made this, so I called it Witstambul, was
nice.
the name of it.
Yep.
And just started playing with the different spices and stuff like that. And it just had a little bit of honey in it, something to give it a little difference, and it turned out great. So
another, just a great imported coriander.
Yes.
It had just a more character to it. This beer has an amazing coriander that stands out.
Well, and it's totally different than any other wit I've had in that, like, it's so floral. Like, the spice note is totally floral. It's very different.
And then I'm getting, and I wonder if it's the coriander or not, but I'm getting also a strong, like, lemon peel.
Okay.
So it's not just that like, kind of spicy coriander that you expect, but a really strong kind of lemon peel that's nice too. Which is there lemon peel in the? No,
we've got bitter orange peel.
Okay,
but it's a bitter orange peel, coriander. There's honey malt, pilsner, and wheat.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's it.
Okay.
And the honey malt, and Nick decided to do because it adds a little bit of a sweetness that's there.
Yeah.
And then the coriander, we start out with that coriander from Istanbul, and then we ran out of it and couldn't exactly do a trip to Istanbul right off the cuff.
It's too bad.
Yeah, we
not just for coriander anyway.
Yeah, it's a weekend trip to.
If we had access to the BN jet, perhaps.
Yeah, right. We'll talk about that. Yeah. We'll see how the show goes.
I feel like if you sent Justin on a mission for coriander, you'd get some pretty.
Yeah.
You may not get coriander.
No. I'd spend the money you sent me with on bail, first of all.
There would be a whole different spice.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Every time we go somewhere, though, like the coriander is just one of these things we've got this interesting fascination with. So we'll go to like Seattle, we'll be at a spice market and pick some up, and we'll crush it up and see how it tastes. Just this beer is near and dear to our hearts, or whatever. It's just one we make a lot.
That's
so
super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so and we're going to come back to this beer because I know that one of the things we're going to talk about is how characteristics of beer really have to stand out, I think, in competitions. In other words, whereas you might, especially on the show here, we compliment all the time subtlety, right? We talk a lot about how, it just has a nice subtle this or that. That doesn't always work in competition. And I think this beer is a good example of that. It is not a subtle wit, but it is balanced. It does all play together, I think, perfectly well, but there's nothing subtle about it. So I know we'll come back to that. I want to ask you guys about you're not pro brewers, you're home brewers.
Correct.
Nick, you have a day job?
Yeah, I own a printing company.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
okay.
In Dallas. And just married, 2 kids. I got itty-bitties. I got like a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So
okay. Are you like everybody else, though? Like, one day I'm going to have a brewery kind of thing?
No, we are anti that
You are, yeah.
movement, yeah.
I like
we
this
just
stuff.
like to
You're
be
smart.
homebrewers, yeah.
Yeah, that's a super solid choice. I'm endorsing your choice.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
I own a business already. It's like, why do that to yourself twice?
Yes.
You know
so you already know. Yeah.
The pain.
Yeah. I mean, if you had to just make somebody else do your job at the printing company, and then you have a brewery.
No.
Oh my God!
It's just so hard. And in
Yeah.
Dallas, we have people opening every second. You know, it seems like Dallas was way behind the homebrew curve for a while. And
you guys are catching up fast.
Yeah, and just every home brewer there has just decided to open up breweries. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's been a lot where we'll run into them at competitions, and we'll say, hey, loved your fill in the blank beer, and they're like, yeah, I'm planning on opening a brewery in the fall, and you're like, oh, okay, awesome. How long have you been brewing? 6 months.
Yeah. Hear it all the time.
Yeah,
I'm sure y'all do.
Yeah. Which, in some cases has worked out, but in most it doesn't. And it's a tough, not just Dallas, right? It's tough anywhere to open a brewery. I'll reiterate some advice it was given to me by the executive director of the California Craft Brewers Association. I've said it on the air before. If your brewery doesn't have like a story or a thing or this very unique proposition, don't open a brewery right now. It's tough right now. It's really hard. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So keep your day job that you already own anyway. Yeah. That's good. And you, Jeb? What's your background?
So my background's a little different than Nick's.
Okay.
My background is that let's see. I went off to school, much like Nick did, a little bit of a different path. I went off to Catholic seminary.
Really?
And became a priest. And so I actually was a priest for about 18 years. And then actually left the priesthood, left active ministry as a Roman Catholic priest in this last November.
Last November, so a year ago, basically.
Yep, almost.
No kidding. Do you come from a Catholic family?
I do. I do. My parents are Catholic, grandparents are Catholic.
So you made them so happy for 18 years, and then you just broke all their hearts.
No, my parents actually are still very proud of me.
Okay.
They still are, because
they're good parents, I can tell.
Not as proud.
They're slightly less proud than they were, 10 months ago. Why did you leave? What happened?
Well, it was kind of a number of things. To bore the living daylights out of everybody.
You won't. Don't worry.
I don't think this is boring.
You're gonna be.
We're riveted.
Next week.
Yeah, I do feel like I should break this story up into several episodes, right? Yeah. I mean, you don't have a job now, right? So you can just hang out in California and do the show every week for the next month. Okay, yeah. Give me the nuts and bolts of why you left the church.
Sure. So one of the first things, I mean, it's. Although I left the priesthood, I'm still very much Catholic.
Okay.
And
So you didn't. I shouldn't say left the church. It left the priesthood.
That's okay. I mean, I understood what you meant.
Yeah.
So I mean, I still am very much a Catholic. Actually, Nick and I, when we first met and became friends, he was actually working at a church that I was assigned to. And
that's how we know each other. Like my very first job was working at church.
Working how? Like you're printing Bibles, or like you're a churchgoer?
I actually did the printing for the church, which is weird.
Yeah, I got you. I know. I can tell.
Get the program.
I can tell. I see it. I can recognize in your face. You weren't just going to church every Sunday. I can see through you.
Well, and when I got there, Nick was one of the brave ones who would actually ask questions, because for some of the people who are not familiar with the Catholic Church, there's this sort of mystique about priests that they sometimes feel very like they're very unapproachable. And I mean, and I can understand. I mean, I felt that as a little kid. You'd see the guys, and they just felt kind of above you. And so, a lot of people. I recently had an accident in which I had one of those steam presses, like at a dry cleaner.
Yeah,
came down on my hand and burnt my hand.
Aye. And
so my hand was red and bandaged, and nobody would ask me about it. I walked into the office, and Nick was there. He's like, "Dude, what's up with the hand?"
What's up with that hand, man? Everybody on the staff was like, "I think it's Our Lady of Guadalupe."
It might be a miracle. You don't want to ask too many questions.
He's like, "Or is it the mark of the beast?"
Yeah,
I'm like, "No, it's not."
Yeah,
beast.
It's like, dude, what's up with that hand?
Was it a homebrewing accident?
Yes, hopefully something. Actually, how the hell did you get it in a press anyway?
So
I didn't think we'd be telling this story. That's not where we're going to start.
If it's a short story,
it's basically at my seminary they had these huge presses that you could use to press your clothes.
Okay,
and I was right there at the end, about to head home, finished my seminary, everything like that. 2 weeks from being ordained a priest, and my parents had always said, just don't come home with dirty clothes. And so I said, okay. And so I always made sure I had all my clothes clean and stuff like that. And I was pressing and stuff. And I was in a hurry and going on. And the press broke and fell down on my hand.
Wait, so you guys have known each other for over 18 years?
Yeah.
I didn't
like
I didn't
18,
catch that part of the story. Okay, got it.
I was like 17, something like that.
You were 17. Yeah, I was in my late 80s at the time.
Yeah, you've been aging great. I got to join the church.
Yeah.
You look fantastic.
Well, my brother.
I don't know. I'm not sure you would make it through the hazing rituals.
Yeah. Or the door is what you're really trying to say, Teresa. I understand.
Hey, you and me both, man.
So you guys meet way back then. Yeah. Okay, but then you've been in the church since.
Correct.
Okay.
And so let's see. So I was, we knew each other through then, and I had started homebrewing. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I showed Nick some of my beer. He liked it. And so we actually started brewing together.
And sorry, how long ago was that you started homebrewing? Basically picked up homebrewing.
That's been 14 years.
You've been doing that a long time. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's when we started. You've been homebrewing basically since like 05.
Oh, yeah. And I started listening to y'all in about 06.
You probably got fired from the church if you haven't listened to us since then. Hopefully in headphones.
Only in my truck.
Okay.
That's right. As a priest, you do a lot of driving.
Yeah, okay.
We were listening on the way over here, and I was like, what did we get ourselves into on the way over here? So,
well, seriously, also, how the hell did you listen this long to us? But okay, I like your style so far. Yeah. So you've been homebrewing that long?
Yes.
All right, go on.
So, been homebrewing. Nick got into the brewing as well. Mm-hmm. And as time went on, we started competing together.
Mm-hmm.
And as we started competing... before we started competing, there were some other guys that I brewed with, and they went pro. And
nice.
So suddenly it was kind of like, all right, what do I do? And Nick had been brewing for a little while, but then took a hiatus because he'd had some problems with some of his batches.
Okay. And
so he said, hey, dude, look, I want to get back into the brewing. He said, come over, watch what I'm doing, and let's see what we can figure out, what's wrong with my process, because I don't want to keep making crap beer and spending good money on it and just wasting it away. I said, all right.
Good questions.
So, we started. I was watching, kind of helping out as he'd go through the process, and everything looked good. His sanitation, his process. Everything was looking good. He was still. You were doing like mini mash or partial mash then.
Partial mash.
Yeah, so a little bit extract grains, and everything was going fine. And I said, dude, I think everything's good. And he said, well, just keep looking. Well, we got to this one point, and I'm watching as we're chilling. Got a little copper immersion chiller that you put in, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, what's that little stream going down there from it?
Yeah, it was like the pot was starting to fill just slightly, and so there was like a pinhole in the bottom of your immersion chiller, and that thing derailed me for like 5 years because I made a batch and I was like, I made a batch and it sucked.
And then like here you're introducing like
hose water,
yeah.
We have the shittiest hose water in like Texas. Texas is the worst water.
So it wasn't even maybe a sanitation issue toward the end, I guess. But even at the beginning, it was really just like a shitty water issue.
Yeah.
You're adding this bad water to the thing.
Oh, wow.
And
so
you saw this. You're looking at this and you're like,
the pot was like getting a little
pot's getting full.
Right.
Oh, wow.
That's fascinating.
And so once he fixed that, then, things started taking off really well.
Okay.
And he started brewing more, went to all grain. By that time, I was already all grain. And then, I'd been entering into Bluebonnet for a while and a couple of other small competitions around Texas. And so, he decided, all right, he said, I'm going to try, enter two. He entered first year. And I was trying to prep him like, okay, dude, look, you don't always have a lot of success, so don't feel bad.
Yeah.
I've been entering for years, and it's okay.
You're already talking him off the ledge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then he wins 3 first places.
Wow.
His first year, I thought,
he's got to talk you off the ledge. Yeah.
He's like, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. And you're like, Father, don't worry. We can't win them all.
Yeah, that's right. Pray one extra rosary. It'll be all right.
About 15.
Yeah.
So then after that, Nick and I are brewing together pretty regularly. And by regularly, we're brewing probably a couple times a month.
Sure.
But always on my day off. As a priest, you get one day off a week. And usually, at least in our area, there in the Fort Worth Diocese, it was Tuesday.
Okay.
Most of the guys took off Tuesday. And so on Tuesday, I'd have my regular stuff I do, just trying to catch up on laundry and goofy things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nick and I would get together and we'd oftentimes brew. And sometimes we couldn't.
It worked out because I own my own place.
So you can make your afternoon off or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of make it work. Yeah.
So we'd brew together. Sometimes at his place, sometimes at mine. We'd alternate it up a little bit, and that's the way it would go. Well, as time went on, we started doing really well together, and we noticed that we played off of each other very well. Both our strengths and weaknesses, and we not only started having success together. We said, let's start entering nationals.
Okay,
and so we started entering into nationals, and
I'm waiting to find out where Jesus got mad at you. So now you're in nationals and you're winning.
Yeah, get to it, man. People want to know.
Well, and I had this thing where it's like I got moved from parish to parish. People would say, "You're the beer brewing priest."
Right.
Well,
which, by the way, makes you approachable. I mean, you kind of mentioned in the beginning that people can be a little standoffish. This makes you approachable.
Well, I did a number of talks with men's groups and young adult groups about the Catholic Church and beer brewing and how the histories intercombine. Combined with spices, the hop trade, all those sorts of things like that.
Yeah,
and usually had great responses.
Yeah,
people responded very positively to it.
Okay,
and even had some people who weren't Catholic say, "I'm going to check your church out."
Nice.
This is awesome.
Yeah, that really is awesome.
Yeah.
It seems positive, doesn't it?
So far, okay. So far it's positive. All right, so you start doing well in competition. You're now
next week on the BN. Can we have a cliffhanger?
Find out what happens to Father Beer.
I think right around this time you started doing beer stuff for the church.
Yes. So one of the things I also began to do is there were charitable groups that I would say, okay, I'll do a dinner for 25 people. I'll cook all the food, brew the beer for it specifically.
Wow.
You tell me what you want, and then we put it up for auction. So raised money for Catholic charities, various schools, things like that. And we did pretty well. I mean, I think the first one I did pulled in about $30,000.
Wow!
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's really great.
Last one, because I did them over about 4 years. Last one I did pulled in almost about $90,000.
That is so cool.
What? Think about that. Like Jeff's, we're making beer, and they're like, they paid me $90,000 to make one batch of beer.
Right?
We got to make a thing out of it, right? I mean, what are we going to do?
You've got pro brewers everywhere going like, how the
I know.
Just dedicate your life to Christ. You'll be all right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have some Catholic friends in high places, and I got to figure out how to make this work.
And this is happening at your most recent parish, these dinners?
Yes. Well, actually, at the one before that.
Okay. All right.
So it was happening at a place in Fort Worth. And so they had a lot of these dinners raising some money. Well, as time went on, the bishop wasn't exactly...
You can kind of see where this is going, right? People are paying this guy $90,000 to start doing these dinners.
Well, let's be clear. They're paying the church and their charities, so this is amazing. But yes,
it started maybe raising the wrong... What are we giving money to type of thing. And so,
well, explain that to me. Are you saying, and by the way, I have to deal with this a little bit here too. Let me explain. Okay. So we do a couple of beer festivals, and they're all for charity. They're all for a nonprofit. And the most recent one we started was our Oktoberfest, and we wanted the beneficiary to be a local kids organization called Junior Giants, and it's through the Giants organization. And their executive director board is through the Concord PD. Without making it complicated, it turned out that accepting money for beer was not okay between the Junior Giants and the Concord PD. It's somewhere in their mission, somewhere in their directives, it was like, actually, we just can't. We want to, but we can't. Is this what you're getting at? That we shouldn't be accepting money for beer?
No, it was more the idea that there became concerns about some of the liability issues.
Okay.
And so, and there was a time where we had a brief meeting with the bishop, the attorney, and they said, okay, these are the concerns about liability issues. And they said, we really want you to stop doing this. And I said, that's fine.
Okay.
I understand.
But Jeff also cooks a lot, so then they started doing just more like of a beer dinner cook thing, And so it got weird, I think, at that point. That's when it got
because if you cancel the beer part, well, now you're going to bring in like $5,000, And you know what? Let's just have another goddamn bake sale. Forgive me.
Well, like the beer dinner and the spaghetti feed are not really on the same level.
Yeah, right. Okay, anyhow, so this starts to change.
Starts to change a little bit.
Okay.
And so as time goes on, Nick and I are brewing. Internationals we've gotten some through first round into second round, and thought, okay, this is pretty good. And, we're trying, we're not only internationals, but all these other competitions as well. Well, then it culminates in 2017 when we end up getting, it was 4 beers to final round, wasn't it, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
4 beers to final round.
Where was 2017, by the way? What city were we in? Was that Baltimore?
You and I couldn't make it.
So it wouldn't have been Baltimore, because we were talking off air.
It was in
Portland?
No.
Portland?
No.
Minnesota?
Okay.
We don't even know where we won this thing. What the hell are we doing, man?
Seriously. I'm just curious, too. All right, so you win Ninkasi, though, in 2017.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we had 4 beers in the second round, and we won 2 firsts.
Okay.
For quad, okay. And then we won for specialty IPA.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And, of course, ecstatic. And makes the local newspaper, makes newspapers around the U.S.
Jeff made the newspaper.
Because let's talk about that, because Ninkasi winning doesn't make papers around the U.S. Catholic priest makes the news. It made major news outlets.
Correct.
Oh, the AHA was so happy with you at this point. Like all that free publicity too.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay.
And it started to make newspapers all over the place. I'd have, my parents' friends from St. Louis said, "Oh, we just saw it in the newspaper up here." And then there's a bishop here in California who I knew that, called me up and said, "Hey, my priest told me that, you won this award. That's great." And
it was in Indonesia.
Wow. Wow.
Malaysian Times. And
oh, my gosh.
And so started seeing all these things. Well, as time went on, there was a moment there where the bishop was not exactly pleased with some of the way these things were going, and he said, I believe this is taking away from and distracting people from your ministry, and from things like that. And he said, I really would like for you to stop
brewing.
Yes,
entirely.
Correct.
Okay.
So at that point, I of course wasn't real happy about that. It's a hobby that I loved, that I had enjoyed, and also Nick and I had done pretty well with.
We just won this effing thing, man.
Yeah, I know. You just
1 second ago.
You're like just starting.
New York rise to homebrew stardom, and then it's like no.
Right.
Yeah.
And then can I just be clear? So sure. I didn't. My brother was raised Catholic, but I was raised by my heathen mother out here in California. But so he had to go through catechism, and I never did. But so I have a peripheral knowledge, is what I'm saying. There's nothing against fermentation, beer, even let's just talk about the Catholics for a second. There's nothing against drinking if you're a Catholic.
No, definitely not.
There are some things about gluttony, and I'm pretty sure that like getting hammered all the time is probably included in that.
Correct, drink to excess.
But nothing specific about brewing, fermenting, offering beer. I'm just trying to get a hold of where your bishop might have been coming from and make sure I'm not like missing something where he like has a point, like, hey, it says right here in the Bible you shouldn't do this.
Well, I'd say this. Let me, from my outsider's point of view, this is where I thought. Justin's like, shut up, Nick, get him.
No, it's fine. This is fine.
No, I think there's definitely nothing wrong with it or anything. One of the coolest parts of the story was we won first place for a Trappist ale.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff's a Catholic priest. It's just like, it writes itself. Right?
Cool as it
gets.
Like
totally.
And I think just that culmination of there was this issue with the alcohol, and then I kind of told you to stop, and then we won this award.
Okay.
And it's just, you got called into
the publicity around it is the problem. But and that's fine. I think that's where you were going. But I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing like some carnal sin here. Okay.
No.
Yeah, all right.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Okay, so he says he asks you to stop again.
I never asked him to stop brewing before, but then it was stop brewing. You know?
Yeah, first it was stop doing the dinners and such that I would do with the beer that I made. Then it was to stop brewing. And so I stopped and actually gave all my brewing equipment to Nick. And he had
it. Wasn't the worst thing.
Yeah. Nick's like, I think your bishop's right. Yeah, okay.
And from that point, it kind of the tension increased.
Okay.
And we became more at odds.
Okay.
Over things. And as time went on, it kind of got to a point where I thought, you know what, it's just...
Well, right when we won, too, you got moved out to like a country parish. And so you got moved out of the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in the church I was in. We built it up from, there were 1,700 families when I got there. There were 3,500 when I left.
Wow.
This is mega church, damn it.
I mean, I can't help but think that part of this is your approachable nature, and that you may have adapted some of your lifestyle philosophies, which is to, hey, we can all just be regular people together too. Just because I'm a priest doesn't mean we can't. That you're building up the attendance at church and so forth, and so this all ends up sort of at odds with this bishop at the time.
Correct.
Interesting.
And so at that point, as time goes on, I began to kind of really look at, okay, can I continue doing this?
Yeah.
Can I continue in this direction or not?
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I thought about it and prayed about it and looked at it and reflected on it and talked about it even with Nick, my close friend, and my parents, and I came to a point where I said, it's probably just best for me to move on.
Okay.
And so...
And not just move on to another church. You decided to leave the priesthood.
Correct. Because, I mean, I'm still Catholic. I'll always be Catholic.
Yeah.
And because it's something that's very... Not only something that I knew about it and studied on and things like that, but it's very much a part of who I am and my own faith and connection with God.
Of course.
And so, I still am. And I mean, I think nothing but the highest of a lot of the guys who are still priests. And stay in contact with some of them too. And
I would hope so.
And and there's it's a lot of good with it. But I thought it's time for me to move on to something else. I think God has other things for me.
Okay.
And so now I'm looking for a job.
So can I and I'll get us moved on to beer and competition. But
no problem.
Can I ask just a couple personal questions?
Sure.
Now?
because we were just on the surface before.
Right. Yeah.
I'm 6'1".
Yeah. This must have been a really difficult decision for you to leave the priesthood. You had to really, you could have just maybe gone to another church or moved to another place, but you really came to this decision. You know what? I'm gonna take the next step. I guess I'm just asking. That must have been a tumultuous time in your life to figure that out.
It was. I mean, it really was a tumultuous time because it wasn't something where I just woke up one morning and thought, well, I'm out of here.
Right.
Peace out.
Right. Yeah, of course. This has been your life's work, literally.
And in a lot of ways, I mean, I feel that. And I mean, after I left, even I had a number of people that reached out to me and said, hey, you did a lot of good. It really meant a lot to me when this happened and that happened. And many times, which I had forgotten, or sometimes even didn't realize of things that I had done that really affected people, which was really wonderful to hear.
Wow. Yeah.
'Cause a lot of times we don't get to hear that.
No, but in times like these, the people want to support and at least acknowledge, hey, maybe I never said this, but I really need to now. I need to tell you the impact.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really awesome.
Okay.
And so, it was a real tumultuous time. And I mean, even right as I left, because there were a number of people that thought, well, what did you do?
Yeah, everybody wants the story, man.
We do.
I never even thought about that.
I mean, it's not our fault that the Catholic Church is in the news all the time. We want to know the story. Of course,
what do you mean?
I know, but then, we forget. It's such a strict lifestyle choice, and then just it's like you're stepping apart from society, and you're living by a whole different set of rules than the rest of us. It's a hard thing.
Yeah,
I actually, my father-in-law was a priest. Mm-hmm. And my mother-in-law was a nun.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And they met each other because my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, his mom had an aneurysm, and they thought she was going to die. So they sent my mother-in-law, Dorothy, to take care of her. Well, they met, and here they are. They're both married to God, and they met each other, and they were just they fell in love, and they. they used to call each other on like it was like football halftime. Monday night football halftime. They would call each other.
And talk about the game, obviously.
And they actually had to, leave the church in order to date. So they never really dated. They just got married.
Oh yeah.
So
it's such a drastic change.
It was such a huge deal, and so like I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, it's not like leaving a job. It's like
which leads me to my next question, and that is, did you immediately download Tinder the day you walked out of the church?
Oh my God!
No.
You waited, 8 hours? Like, whatever respectable amount of time?
The number of confessions I've heard over the years and stuff involved with that and the other things, I know well to stay well away.
I bet you do. Oh, my God.
People always say, well, it's not that bad. I'm like, no, I've heard everything you can imagine and everything you don't want to imagine.
I bet you have. I never thought about that side of the priesthood. You're writing a book, right? I don't think you have to have a job. I think you have to start writing immediately. And the writing, it's this is more than one book, or at least it has a couple parts. BC and AC, church being the C. Mm-hmm. I have met several actually. I call them recovering Mormons.
Okay.
And listen to me. Did they go crazy when they decided that they weren't Mormon anymore? I haven't even done the things that these people do when they decide they're recovering from that whole thing. And you have a whole other life ahead of you now, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm excited for you.
So no Tinder.
Okay, no Tinder.
Good, though. You have like a very blank slate.
You do have a blank slate, right?
Totally.
You're
optimistic?
You're
going to do great things.
I hope so. I mean, I'm optimistic about things. I mean, I took a number of months just to kind of unwind and recover.
Okay.
I think I took the first several months and just slept.
Good for you.
Wow, yeah.
Did a lot of sleeping, and then started to reconnect a little bit more with family and friends.
Okay.
And I hadn't really realized how much I had not been spending time with my family, with some of my friends.
Wow.
And so that's been good to do. And I did a little traveling. Nick and I do some traveling to beer destinations.
Some beer traveling, okay.
Oh yeah,
very good.
Vacations.
Oh yes, we've been doing those for quite some time.
That's right.
Yeah,
good.
Our first one was out to Dogfish Head.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Did you stay in the hotel?
No, that was well before they had it.
Oh, even before that. Okay, yeah.
That was we walked
2004 or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember us walking in and saying, we're looking for some guy named Klaus. This guy stands up, that's me!
Right.
And
wow.
just starts walking around. But anyway, I mean, at this point, I'm looking to see, what do I do next? What do I want to do? I've had a number of people who, as I immediately left, I had several people said, so I heard you opened a brewery. Can I have the beer? And I said, no.
Right.
There's been so many rumors. That's the weird thing. Why did you leave? What'd you really leave for?
And I heard you're married.
Yeah.
Right.
And one's already said, I heard you're married. And I said, really? To who?
Yeah. You're like, who is he?
It's been really weird to be on.
I'm just messing with you now.
It's been weird to be on the outside because, I'm the close friend, right? And
didn't you tell me that there was a rumor even about you two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definite rumors.
Rumors everywhere.
I have 2 kids.
Right.
I swear.
And a wife, yeah.
That's right.
You know what? People are always going to talk. Mm-hmm. You might. Everyone knows that, right? But, yeah, whenever there's an air of mystique, then they just keep on talking. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, okay. I know we want to talk about beer. I want to say to you that I'm happy for you.
Thanks.
I'm optimistic for you, and that I very, very much appreciate you being so forthcoming about this whole thing. Because I think our listeners, if I glossed over anything, they'd have been like, Justin, bro. He had like 5 more questions in there. So I appreciate that. I hope it's not uncomfortable for you. No. And good. All right.
I'm happy because it's a very much it was very much a wonderful part of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I still look back on it, and the people I was with, that I served with, that I ministered with, and everything. I have the utmost respect for them and love for them, and
right.
I look to say, okay, I still believe there's a lot of stuff in my future that I can do, and
sure.
And
for example, I was thinking I could confess to you right after the show. You could already start doing your next job, which is as a civilian. No, Bevo.
Honestly, don't put that on him.
He was like, you can't.
I'm not sure you have enough time.
First of all, you're not and
he
don't
thinks
do that
he's
to
heard
him.
it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, shit, I got to go back to the church. These people need my help.
Yeah. First, I got to get a shower.
He would have to confess after your confession.
They're like, Jeff, you're back so soon. Bishop, we got to talk, man. It is rough out there. Don't go to California. The whole place is on fire.
I know, the
and
place
I'll tell
is on
you,
fire for a
after talking
reason.
to Justin, there's a reason. Yeah.
The devil's armpit.
Thank you, Nick. Yes. All right, let's get to competition brewing with you guys. And now we've got, the good news is with that, we've gotten through some of your backstory and how you got together and started brewing together. And how you came to win Ninkasi. So why don't we start just then back at like the basics for those of our listeners who want to start brewing, and maybe we can just start with like equipment. Did you all have, or do I need a bunch of fancy equipment to start getting ready for competition?
So I'm kind of like the gearhead I'm the process guy. That's when Jeff and I first kind of started making beer together. I think it got pretty good when I started bringing my strengths to the table, which was process, equipment, repeatability, those kind of things. Jeff's always been the creative recipe kind of guy. And so, I mean, we're here to tell you, you can brew beer on any system you want.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be anything.
Assuming your chiller doesn't have a hole in it.
Right.
So almost any system.
Right.
Yeah.
The fancy stainless steel more beer thing's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We have that, but you don't need to have it. You know, any normal 3-vessel system will work fine.
Okay.
There's a couple things you got to have. Like you got to probably be going to get to that next level. You got to be doing all grain.
Okay.
You know, you got to probably be doing anything you can to make it repeatable. Right.
So
that's the key.
Okay, that's why all grain is important, because you were doing partial or mini mash, and Jeff didn't see a whole lot of issues there other than an equipment failure. But you're worried about the repeatability when you use extract of any kind?
No. I just think that if you want to get to that next level, you got to be having, go all
full
grain.
control.
Yeah, right, full control.
Okay.
It comes down to repeatability, the way you mash and all those different things. So
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, but for equipment, we both started out pretty similar. We both started out with, these big insulated coolers, the GOT coolers or something like that, or igloo coolers that, you constructed your own little false bottom out of. And, the biggest, pot that we could afford.
Sure.
I remember the first stock pot I bought that was like 22 quart, and I thought, golly.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Right. Now it seems tiny.
Oh, yeah. And, compared to, we bought a 45-gallon pot a while back.
Yeah. And you were brewing on your stovetop to start like everybody else?
Started with that, and then one of my buddies was like, hey, you can go down to the sporting goods store, $20 gets you a propane burner. I'm like, all right.
The Bayou burner or whatever.
I know that we had that exact thing.
Okay,
moved outside, and so you can start with a lot of those basics.
Okay.
But I know for Nick and I, we found that we really began to do better when we started, doing all grain, which gave us a little more control to tweak things for competitions. And then also...
we've had really good extract beer. You can make... some people have won at Nationals with extract beer.
Okay.
But if you really want to nail it down, you got to be all grain.
And I think it's a good point, because you're not saying that extract is not of quality. You're actually, at least what I'm hearing, is you're just saying you want as much of the process as possible to be under your control, to be repeatable. And all grain does that a little better than extract, even though obviously there's great extract available.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything you can do to make it repeatable. Any standard 3-vessel system is fine.
Okay.
There's minor things you can. We tweak it.
My Igloo mash tun, by the way, with a false bottom from More Beer, was still the best mash tun I've ever had.
Sure.
And I had the More Beer 1552, and that mash tun worked, but it was kind of a big fat pain in the ass all the time. It also had been passed down through 4 brewers before it got to me. But my Igloo was now you could only do like a single infusion, right? But it was so simple. Like once I dialed it in, and then it just stayed there for the hour, like it was supposed to. I think I dropped a degree or something.
Sure, yeah.
So anyhow, I'm just sort of agreeing.
Oh, sure.
3-vessel system, and the simplest mash tun I ever had was the best mash tun I ever had.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it takes, whatever you feel comfortable on is fine.
Okay.
As long as you got a couple of those basic things going on, I think it's okay.
Well, what do you have as far as on the cellar side? Do you have fermentation temp control?
Mm-hmm. You have to have that. I mean, that's the next thing I think you've got to have as a bare minimum is you've got to have fermentation control and oxygen. We direct use the micro stone wand like everyone else does, and then put oxygen in there, and then control the fermentation.
So aerate your wort, which has with oxygen, not by shaking it in a carboy, with oxygen, and then we cannot compromise on temperature control.
Temperature control is a must.
Okay,
it really is because there's so many things that can happen to your beer, as y'all know, during the fermentation process. That if you're running too hot, too cold, there's so many of these things that can go all kinds of wonky.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so fermentation control. And then since we're talking about fermentation, have you guys noticed a difference between doing a yeast starter or just pitching a bunch of vials?
That's the interesting thing because we're not, I wouldn't say anti-starter, but we don't usually do starters.
You don't?
You don't do starters. I'm surprised.
I know, right? No, well...
Here's what I like about you saying this. Is that people that I trust and respect on this very show disagree on this very topic. And I'm always torn because I respect and trust these people. So, for example, Chris White will tell you that we very, very carefully decide how many cells are in these packets of White Labs yeast for you. Like, we have spent time and money researching this, right? So just pitch it and you'll be good. And then people like Jamil, who I love and respect, will say, I love Chris White, but you absolutely have to do a starter. And I never know who to listen to. This probably won't be solved here today, but you don't.
It's a combo for us. Like, if we're doing a big beer, right, or like a lager, we'll make a starter for sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But if it's, we're working, you know what I mean, at the same time. He's not. But
you don't have endless time to
is it better to rush a starter or pitch 2 packets?
Right.
I think it's better for me to pitch 2 packets.
So you're pitching more because you're not doing a starter.
Yeah, so you got to get your cell count up no matter what.
Okay.
Right, but
less chance of contamination.
You oxygenate it the right way already. You've got that nailed down. It's at the right temperature already, ready to go.
Right, and these are the areas where I would always be so torn because Chris White will look me in the eyes and be like, "We propagated it perfectly in a lab. We put all the nutrients it needed in a lab. We did this in a lab. And then your dumbass is going to dump it into an open beaker and let it spin around for 24 hours before you throw it into your beer." And I was always like, God, yeah, that sounds dumb. And then Jamil's like, listen, I put it under a microscope and it needs more cells and the whole goddamn thing.
So that
but
was
you'll pitch more. You'll do 2 packets instead of 1. Get the cell count up.
So we won the Ninkasi for this. So we had the 2 beers that won first.
Yeah.
The one was the quad. Obviously you have to have a starter for that, right?
Yeah, quad's a huge beer.
Had to do a starter, and then the second beer was specialty IPA. And I still think the gravity was 1068 or something, 1070.
Okay.
So we pitched 3 packets.
Wow.
And that was it. But that's weird because Jamil's yeast calculator even tells you it's 10 million packets.
And just go packets. I guess, and I hate when I put words in his mouth. He hates it too. Occasionally, though, he's it's more also to make it active. Like Chris will sometimes say, if you want to get it active and going, I'm not telling you that's a terrible thing. I'm just telling you you're not really propagating any more cells than you need. Like you're not getting more cells unless you feed it a second time and let it really grow. So I think the 2 of them might agree sometimes that just to get it alive and alive, that's a terrible word. Chris would shoot me for saying that. Just to get it awake and happy and ready to go. Yeah.
So that's
you
something
certain?
we don't do often.
Okay, and you're certain that Jesus doesn't have anything to do with that, because you do have somebody on your side. I feel like,
but we're not using holy water for
That's
it.
right.
Okay, all right. So it's just okay. All right, I like this. But so fermentation matters, pitch count matters, but for you
don't
guys,
pray over it.
you're not too concerned about a starter unless you said like it's a lager, like a big.
I mean,
lager.
if we had the time and it was like maybe an ideal situation, always it's. I guess in a perfect world, you would always make a starter, but it's just.
It clearly hasn't hurt you that you don't.
So those beers, like we want, no, it hasn't hurt us.
I mean, we've done well in competition by double pitching.
Okay.
And not doing.
We also do things other people don't do. Like it's so damn hot in Texas. Like we can never pitch the same day. Like I always have to let it cool down overnight.
Well,
because the groundwater's warm.
Yeah,
it's coming out like 80 some odd degrees.
I had that issue here in California too.
Yeah. I have that issue in my commercial brewery, actually.
Yeah, and you got glycol and everything. Yeah.
You know, like I've learned. I was a home brewer. I was very serious about my home brewing. I was very I had all the controls. I had all the temp controls and everything. And here I start my commercial brewery, and I want to do a lager in the summer. And I'm like, crap! I can't get the beer in the tank less than 70 degrees. What the hell am I going to do? But you know what? There's so many ways to get to the right answer. We've made award-winning lagers that we pitched at 70 degrees. We just put them in the tank and we cooled that tank down as quickly as we could. But there are so many ways to win. So I think the funny thing is everyone's always looking for the most successful way, but there's so many different ways to do it right.
But okay, and I agree with that. Fermentation control. What about just consistency and repeatability? Because there are so many ways to win, but I'm feeling like you guys maybe nailed down a process that works for you, and you do that. Is that fair to say?
Oh, sure. I mean, that is the number one thing. I mean, the best brewers that are winning these competitions every time, they can take a recipe and make it again. I mean, I don't know how many people just win an award because they made a beer they can't ever make again, right?
Right.
And so...
let me ask you this on that front. When you guys won Ninkasi, did you remake those beers for the second round that got you into the second round?
Yeah, each time.
You did, and clearly you repeated them.
Yeah.
Well, not on the quad.
The quad we didn't because it needed a lot of lead time, but for the especially IPA we did.
Okay.
And actually we brewed that one. Gosh, we brewed 3 different versions of it.
We did 15 gallons, split it, 3 different yeasts, 3 different dry hops. Which one tastes better?
Wow.
Throw it in.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
And chose the one. Okay, so this is, I think, an important point because we are talking about a couple of different things here. Repeatability, I think a listener might go, oh, well, then when you brew the beer again, it's going to be exactly the beer that you brewed before. But you guys hedged your bet for that. So even though I'm guessing you have a process down, you then put in the extra effort to go, well, let's brew 3 of them and figure out which is as close to the one that already got us to the second round?
Kind of. See,
okay.
Here's the difference, okay? So on the first round in that year, some judges were a little negative, oh, you need a little more nose. You need a little bit more cleaner, like a cleaner finish.
Okay.
And we were like, well, let's remake it. We could make it the exact same way and just make a small tweak, and it would be small tweak, right?
Yeah.
That's the repeatability we're talking about. You have to be able to make a beer like the Wit and put a different coriander and it just turn out slightly different to see the result. If not, you're hitting a moving target, right?
Yeah, you're never going to learn anything if you change 7 variables.
But at the same time, that quad, I could make it 10 times in a row and it would be pretty much the same every time.
Okay.
See, we're real big on the idea of our ingredients, with our, making sure our water is a certain way, all those things like that. Because one of the things we found out is every 2 row differs a little bit. Just a little bit.
Every brand or every time you go to the homebrew shop and get 2 row, it's different, even if it's the same brand?
Every brand.
Every brand's different.
And so we found the one that we felt worked best for us, which happened to be raw 2 row. And we knew what kind of yield we were getting from it. We knew how it was going to be, everything was behaving during the mash. And so we stuck with that. And there'd be times where we would go to the homebrew store and they'd say, hey, we got this new malt in, it's less expensive.
Yeah.
And usually we'd say, no, I need my sack of raw 2 row. because I know what it's going to taste like. I know what it's going to be like. And it's the same thing with our hops, which I know, Nick and I've had some things with hops where, sometimes as a home brewer you go in and say, okay, I need 3 ounces of Cascade, 3 ounces of Centennial, and 2 ounces of Simcoe, and you're on your merry way.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And
never won a competition.
Well, and ingredients and repeatability and that's we could do a whole show on that. I mean, it's one of those things where but what we're talking about here is more like process. You can make a beer, repeat it every time, and nail it.
Okay. But the ingredients matter, and I think we'll come back to that, too, because I'm glad you bring it up. But in this particular case, I like this IPA as an example, because you decided to brew it again for the second round, but you made 3 tweaks in 3 different batches. Is that what happened?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And then you still end up... I like this part of it, too, by the way. Sure. It wasn't a 50-point beer. Nobody makes a 50-point beer, right? So it had negative comments. You took those. It still made it to the second round, but it had negative comments in the feedback you got from the judges, and you decided over the course of 3 batches to rebrew it to address those comments.
So we made the same 1 15-gallon batch and split it.
Got it. And then, so the differences were like how you dry hopped it, maybe how you fermentation temperature,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. I really like this idea. I think that just because, even if you had gotten, say, how many points did you get on that beer? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know.
Because you could make it to the second round with 35 points sometimes, right?
I mean, IPA is always going to be a good score because there's so many in it, right?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, even though you might have scored very well, you're not just going, well, I made it to the second round, so I'm just going to rebrew that beer and send it in. You guys thought about how you could react to the judges.
I think it's nationals, though, because that's the big dance, right? You've got winners from all over the country coming into second round, and you're like, well, if this regional judge thought it didn't have enough no's, then we better really up it, right? It's got to be something completely different.
So is that how it works? Like you enter the competition and there's 2 rounds?
Yeah, so maybe, and a lot of people don't even know what the Ninkasi is. Like, I don't think that's an everyday.
You should explain, because I don't.
This girl sitting over here all day is like, who the hell are these people?
No. I give respect where respect's due, but I don't understand how it works.
So there's like 12 or 13 regional sites, okay? And everybody sends, I think it's 9,000 entries or something like that.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
Oh, my God.
And so you send it through, and then if you get, God, my voice is crazy. This fire is like, I'm cracking like nonstop. Like
so I was gone for the weekend and came back, and it's bothering me just in the 2 days. Actually, 12 hours I've been home. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I keep downing beer like it's water. We'll be fine.
Bev, can we get some water? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Either way, so you send in this beer through first round, then the people that place in those categories end up moving on to final round. And
so you have an opportunity to brew the beer again.
Yes, and some people do and some people don't.
Yeah,
some people just send in the
beer.
same beer.
Those people that don't win. You have to rebrew it. I mean, you can't.
Unless, you guys, I mean, if it's a barley wine, if it's a quad, if it was something that was from your cellar that was already 2 years old anyway. But if it's any of the fresh styles,
right? You have to remake. I mean, you can't not, right?
But some people don't, by the way, and those people don't win in Kasi. So let's just be clear about that.
Okay. So then Kasi is like, if you get a first, you get points for first, second, and third. The most points in the second round is the overall winner, and that's the Ninkasi.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
by winning 2 first, it's kind of a shoe-in kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But that's how it worked. Either way, because of that, you're competing back to this black IPA, right?
Yeah.
So, you're competing against, especially specialty IPA, because it's...
Yeah, that's
that's a huge spectrum,
a lot of different things.
Now it's even crazier with hazies and all that stuff, right? So if you're getting any kind of negative, it's a good time to probably tweak it, right? It's a good time to probably just do something slightly different. So we just dry hopped it slightly different, really upped it. It wouldn't have been my favorite beer to drink in the world, but it was good.
Yeah.
And so after we did everything, we just tried everything side by side, 6 beers just in a row.
Okay.
And just say, this is the best one. And, a lot of it is you have to have a good palate to know what's good and stuff like that.
So that's a good point, by the way, that as you get better at this, I don't want brewers to be discouraged by this. You have to have a good palate. You should be developing a good palate if you want to do well in competition.
Well, and one of the things that Nick and I always do is whenever we have a particular beer that we are wanting to brew, then we look to the style guidelines and we say, okay, what are the commercial examples?
Got it.
And we try and get every one that we can. And it's getting better in Texas. A lot of the laws have changed, and we're getting a lot more beers coming in.
Yeah.
And so we're able to get some of those styles. And what we'll do is we'll sit down with as many of those as we can get. We taste through them.
Okay.
And see, okay, what can we taste? We're supposed to taste this or that. Can you taste this?
Yeah.
And then, what do we like about it? What do we not like about it? And then, we formulate our recipe based around that. And we'll look also to other people who've done recipes. We'll look at Jamil's book and see kind of some of the stuff that he's done, as well as look at other recipes. And
sure.
Yeah.
And compare. Use the resources that are out there.
Yeah.
By the way, this comparing commercial styles should not be understated because it's almost like cheating if you think about it. In other words, the commercial examples for every style are listed right there in the BJCP. And if judges are stuck on a beer at their table, for example, they will absolutely refer to the style and go, well, you know what? This is a great IPA, but it does not match this category. It's more of a hazy IPA. I don't know what they might end up saying. This one's more of an English IPA. So if you can align it with the commercial examples that are listed, this is why I say it's like cheating. They're listed right there. It might be the difference between the judges moving one beer or another one, right?
Yeah, we made the black IPA. There was this beer by Lagunitas, Nighttime is the beer.
Yeah, I remember that beer.
I just thought that beer was the balls. I don't know how to. I just thought that was the best beer,
and
I found out.
It was actually at Nationals.
Yeah, it was at Nationals. We were in Grand Rapids, and it was funny. I found out through this site that they use midnight wheat as the specialty ingredient.
Yeah,
and it turned out that the maltster was
I think it's Breeze.
Breeze is making. They're giving out a 1 ounce sample of this ingredient.
The midnight wheat.
And I'm like, Jeff, I just put this recipe in. We need 19 samples. I was like, we just kept going around the line over and over and over.
Oh, man.
The guy's like, do you just want some fucking malt?
I was just going to say, especially these conferences, you can always just go can I have 19?
Yeah.
They would have loved you for it. They would have laughed.
I can either go through line 20 times or you can just hand me all
I like
the midnight
that you
wheat
did
that you have.
That's funny.
We can do this fun way or the easy way. But that's how we did. So we would try that beer. We brewed it. Tried it side by side, and made adjustments.
Okay.
Well, the first year our brewery was open, we had this local guy. His name's Big Mike Moore because he's almost 7 feet tall, and he's a grandmaster beer judge, and he takes beer tours in Belgium and Germany, and he's like a beer educator. He's made beer his career somehow or some way, and he did a style training with us over. I don't know, it was probably 15 weeks where each week we would sit and taste commercial examples of a given beer style. And it helps so much. I mean, we knew quite a bit when we opened the brewery, but just to do that, style training and just really dig into beer style, it was awesome. I would highly recommend it to homebrew clubs just to have this.
Good advice. The only thing I've ever done for 15 weeks is drink. I've never committed to any other thing.
It was, and we actually filled out judging sheets for these beers,
right?
And we would do them blind, and we would taste. Oh my god, it was. I kind of wish we could do it again.
Want to do it again?
Yeah. And we kind of skipped this. I meant to bring this up earlier, but you got all fascinated with Jeff's pre-shit. And so...
priest shit. I love it. One day he might refer to it the same way. He'll be like, "Yeah, remember when I went through that priest phase?"
Yeah.
that eye roll right now was just so telling. It's just we're all drawn in. You're so over it.
Either way,
Nick is super over it.
You're 18 years. It's enough. Get over it already. God, become a used car salesman.
Either way, so we have traveled. I mean, we've been to Belgium 3 times. We've been to Oktoberfest
Really?
a couple times. I mean, we've really, before we ever really got into brewing as much, we've been traveling.
Yeah.
We've been to London. I mean, we just really have always loved craft beer.
Sure.
So, I can tell you, this wit is good. It's bad. That's important. People find a style. Some local brewery is making something oh, man.
Yeah.
I love this style, and it's the only one they've ever had. And it's who even knows if that's a good style?
Well, this is a good point, and that's why I was kind of going back to you don't don't not enter competitions because you haven't developed your palate, but if you want to do well in competitions, develop your palate so that you can taste these commercial examples and then and put your own beer to the test.
Yeah,
based
and
on
I would
that.
say that
Okay.
my palate is a lot less. Jeff is more of the chef. He's got that more refined taste.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
So,
and everybody's different like that. And so mine is not that refined either. But if I do sit down with Jamil or somebody else, I find that I definitely can. I can talk my way through it with everybody, and maybe Jeff will say something, and I'll go, "Oh yeah, I did just pick that up. I wouldn't have said it without you, but now that you said it, I picked that up." So it's also helpful that you guys are a team and having other people come and taste with you.
that's the thing. I mean, with us, we play off each other a lot. You know,
Yeah.
he can really taste things that I can't, and I'm better at, like, Jeff, we got to make this. It's due in 2 weeks. Let's nail it down. So
Sure.
That's kind of it.
All right, let me get us to a break. We've done a long stretch here, but we've got more to cover. So hang tight, and when we come back, we're going to discuss more about competition brewing with our Ninkasi winners. Hang in there. You're listening to The Session.
You're listening to the Brewing Network. Because like beer, radio shouldn't suck.
All right. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for hanging out with us. We got more to do. We got more beer to try, and we've got more to talk about. We already talked a little bit about how to prep for competition, and one good way to do that is to make sure you keep all your recipes in one place. You can do that by using Beersmith brewing software. Go to beersmith.com right now. You get your free 21-day trial, and so that way you don't have to take my word for it. It works on Mac and PC, and it probably works on computers that haven't even been invented yet because Brad's really good at what he does over there. Go to beersmith.com and check it out right now. That's the Beersmith brewing software. All right. So before the break, we were still talking about repeatability and even brewing with other people so that you have some other palates in there. And then you had mentioned a phrase to me, Nick, that sounded important in your brewing philosophy.
We talk about this idea of you got to avoid the ugly baby.
Okay.
Idea of that.
So don't have white children? Is that what you're saying? Because I've always felt that white kids are ugly. Except for Abigail, Bev, everybody knows I feel this way.
Right. Well, there's just been, you've been to that party where a guy's like, man, I am so stoked about how this beer turned out. Can you try this? And you're like, I got to scrape my tongue to get the feeling of disgust off of this beer. And it's this thing that brewing is such a labor of love. Mm-hmm. You just blinders get turned on. And the idea ugly baby is,
I see what you mean now. You actually mean what I'm talking about. My joke is that you like your ugly baby.
Well, nobody ever wants to admit that their baby's ugly.
Right.
But the fact that is there are some ugly babies in this world. That doesn't mean that they're not, wonderful children, that their parents love them, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
But
they're just ugly. No, I'm with you on this. I'm being serious.
Yeah,
I've been saying it for years. Yeah.
And so it's similar with beer and brewing because somebody puts so much time, effort, love into making a beer, they don't want to admit that there's something wrong with it.
Yeah. Don't succumb to that.
They can't see it.
They can't see it, and
they're too close. They're mystified by the way that they just made alcohol.
Right.
It's so amazing.
Now let me ask you this though. And now I'm genuinely asking your opinion if you've really thought about this, because I have talked about this for years in brewing, that like don't have the blinders on, don't be sensitive, be open to criticism. But I've started to wonder if there are people who never can be. Do you see what I'm getting at? Aren't there people who don't have that gene or that capability to be that objective?
So, think of it. I think that's the difference in these competition people.
Okay.
It's like with us. I'm the kind of guy that there's been several occasions when I've come home from work and I've tried a beer and I've been like, this fucking beer is terrible. And then I just empty every keg and pour. It's like maniacal, almost. You're comparing it to this, unachievable homebrew standard that you're trying to get to, right?
Okay.
And then some people are just like, hey, I made a keg of this. I'm going to drink it.
Yeah.
It's like, and everybody can have it. It's fine. I made it. It's great. And, the point of this was not to bring up that, but more it's like when you're brewing with somebody else, you're in competitions, it's an easy way for you to kind of
be open
get
to
real feedback. It's opening yourself up and That's tough for some people.
Oh, it is. I mean, there's a thing that was it Beer and Brewing Magazine did, which was they called it a brewer's retreat, and I think other groups have done similar things.
Yeah. And
Nick and I went on this in Colorado, and there was this guy who came up to us who sort of touted himself as just being a brewing badass.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And
it starts there.
Oh, and he said, I got a Belgian blonde. That's the only thing I make. I don't need to make any other beer because it is the most phenomenal beer ever.
Oh, my God. This guy, and he was our group, and we were like...
You're like, already.
I got to try this beer. He makes one beer.
No, you did not think that. You thought exactly what I think was like, well, this isn't going to be good.
Well, he was like... he was a doctor, okay, and he had poured all this money into this system. It's like what we kind of went back to.
Didn't he, like, buy a mountain or something?
Yeah,
dude?
I don't know. It's
something
Fort Collins bullshit.
Sounds about right.
Either way.
I'm with you, yeah.
Either way. So,
sounds about
right. This whole thing goes on, and we're there, and this guy, he's like, I'm going to bring the beer. And we were brewing with Stephen
Powell's of Boulevard.
That's who we were brewing with.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
Stephen's like, and we're brewing with him, and Stephen's like, he hands him the beer, and Stephen just like, oh, my God. This is the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth.
He said it out loud.
He turned. It was like this Belgium,
he didn't say
filter.
it to the guy.
No.
Okay.
He said it right to his face.
He did.
Oh,
and
that's
he even
so
said,
awesome.
like, come over here, Matt Brindleton.
Wow.
Let me let you try the worst beer in my world.
Oh, wow.
And I go. And then I gave beer to Steve.
I
was like,
Steven right now.
Here you go.
Yeah, but you want the feedback.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, what a beautiful
He's like, oh, you
moment.
made this? And I was like,
So I guess I'm saying that I agree with you that people should be careful that they're closed off to feedback. I just think that there are people like this gentleman you're describing that will never really be open to it.
They can't see it. I mean, that's people. No one is like saying, "Oh, my baby's ugly," but I'm not going to tell anybody. They just can't see it.
And at the same time, be careful. I think you mentioned this starting this too. Be careful that you don't go too far to the other side. You know, I quit writing music because I could never write a Beatles song. Right?
Sure.
Like, I was all right. I was kind of all right. But every song I wrote, I was like, it's not a Beatles song. And I'm a fan. Like, they're my gold standard, right? So, I'm not saying I should have become a musician, but I shouldn't have quit, per se, because I'm not the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
So, somewhere in between is taking feedback. And then also, because it's not a 50-point beer, don't go dump all your kegs down the drain.
And I'm you.
Yeah.
I'm you with that. And he's like my brain was like, okay,
it was
fine, bro. Yeah,
yeah.
fine. It's like, didn't have to throw away all that fucking beer, man.
Settle down, yeah. Okay.
It's fine.
I'm sure that's how
and
you said it, too.
the beauty of competitions is you can get that feedback without ego. You can have a huge ass ego and send your beer to competitions, and it gets hammered. And you don't have to be mad at anybody because it was not they weren't telling it to your face. I mean that's kind of the greatest thing.
And that's something let's talk about that, because unbiased feedback is important too.
Yes.
So Stephen Powell's, who I love even more than I loved before, now that you told me that story, is an exception. But most of the time, even if you want to give somebody positive feedback, when you're or real feedback, when you're face to face, you kind of pull some punches, right? We all do, because you don't want to insult anybody. But in competition, they're not in your face.
Well, that was the whole
and
point.
They're just going to hand you some sheets. And so one reason to enter, obviously, is for this unbiased feedback.
I mean, that's the main. That's the first thing you get. So you've come along your journey. You start making beer. And, you got to throw it in a comp to see how it really does.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you got to throw it in more than one comp. That was more than one competition, because I'd run into somebody who said, well, I entered a competition, I didn't do well, and so I just decided not to do it anymore. Well,
right.
You got to enter it again. Or, I've had somebody say, well, I didn't get a whole lot of feedback. And that can happen. Maybe a judge is rushed, or, isn't writing a whole lot of details. But then every once in a while, or more than every once in a while, you'll get a judge that really will get into it and say, loved it, what you did about this, or what you did about that.
Yeah.
Or, I detected something like this. You might want to, watch your fermentation temperature, or some things like that. We even recently, we've got somebody we started getting comments about oxidation. We thought, why are we getting comments about oxidation? We hadn't had that before.
Yeah.
And so we just started really, looking again at our process of everything we did and tried to nail it down. I think we figured out what the deal is.
Yeah, it was just
Another
minor
hole
thing.
in a,
Another hole in a
Yeah.
tube somewhere.
It's weird though. Like a lot of people will say, "Hey, why?" It's not natural for everybody to like want to enter a competition. Some people just don't want to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
To get that feedback.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just one of those things. It's going to make you a better brewer in the end. I mean, it's it's just a lot of fun. So I mean, that's why.
Sure. Well, the feedback's super important. I'm glad you mentioned to enter more than one competition because sometimes also those comments can be random and not true. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget that judging is subjective.
Correct.
But if you got, for example, consistent notes about oxidation, go looking for it. In fact, even if you got one note for oxidation, go looking for it, but maybe you don't go crazy until you heard it 3 or 4 times. So in other words, use the feedback to your advantage, right?
Yes.
Okay, and by entering multiple competitions, I like this advice that across. Then you're getting a span of judges. Yeah.
Well, and also even one of the things to do as we get ready for nationals is to enter into more than just your local competitions in your own area, your own state, but try something on East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, the Southwest. Because the palates will differ a little bit.
Right.
The type of IPA that someone's looking for on the East Coast is going to be different than sometimes you'll see in the West or in the Midwest.
That's a good point.
And that becomes important also when you choose your judging center. Or when you try and put in for your judging centers at nationals.
Yeah, can you still enter any region you want in the first round? Yeah. That's still a thing.
This year was weird because this was a weird year for us because we've always entered in like the Austin regional.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And they didn't have it this year. So, like, my option was Denver, Minnesota. It's like, I don't know if they're going to like this kind of IPA there. I mean, it's not as different as we're making it.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I think it used to be. I think it's probably changing a little now where, people are a little more used to it.
But,
okay. So choosing your competition just to get some variance, though.
That, and it's like, there's a little bit of reverse logic to competitions. The bigger the competition to us, the easier it is to win.
Interesting.
Because,
why is that?
If your brewery, let's not use your brewery. No
you can
names.
use my brewery.
No, if your brewery puts on a competition, okay,
Uh-huh.
it's probably going to be, a single style maybe, or it'll be like just everybody enter a beer, and we're going to judge the beers all in a group, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's Oktoberfest versus Porter versus whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's not really fair, right? So if you're
some
trying
of
to
those
win,
beers are going to stand out more than others.
That's why Best of Show is like always a shit show, right? Like in the thing, it just is. It's like, how are you even comparing, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of it is the number. If you're trying to win with subtleties, you need a lot of entries, right?
Yeah.
You need a lot of entries, and so the larger competitions seem to have better judges. Better judges can pick out those subtleties. That's why you need to pick better comps. I don't know. It seemed like when we first started, we would enter these littler competitions, and it was like we were moving targets. It was like
That's
one
a good
judge
point.
said this was shitty. The other guy said this was great. And, it ended up.
It's kind of a lack of consistency there.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, so-
And judge it, maybe not even just the size, although I bet it's correlated, the amount of time that competition has been around.
Sure.
Right? So like the Blue Bonnet's been around for a while.
It's
right?
the big, there's like 1,500 entries every year. So it's pretty big, it's a pretty big thing.
So it's going to attract good judges. It's going to attract repeat judges. Okay, I never heard this advice. That's
it's
a good
kind of
point.
a different. It's kind of a different mentality. I think people think, and in the end, if you do win, then you've made something.
Sure,
good,
then
right?
it's a bigger pat on your back.
Right. Well, it's just like it's more validating the results.
Yeah.
And so, but you really have to if you're going to win.
Yeah.
You've got, if you're going to continue to make a recipe better, it has to continue to show those same. If you get one feedback, somebody said this was the best, dunkel they ever had, and the next competition says it sucked. You've got to learn to judge the results a little differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's also trying to find ways to stand out. To try and stand out in the lineup. When you're having someone who is tasting, a flight of 12 beers in a row, all the same style, then it becomes, you could have 8 or 10 solid entries in there. And it's like, okay, then it comes down to personal preferences you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And so how is it your beer stands out?
Right.
And
so is this to say that maybe the more popular the category is, the more you might want to do something to make your beer stand out too?
Sure.
In other words, if I'm going to I don't know. I'm trying to pick an unpopular category now because there aren't many anymore.
Like Hefeweizen or wheat beer, even those are pretty low right now.
Those you can maybe skate through on subtlety, but if you're going to put through a hazy IPA, something better stand out.
Yeah, it's got to be bang. That's like peel the curtain back a little bit. But when we internationals, we look at last year and said which categories were entered the least. I see. Go ahead and give yourself that advantage.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like you should definitely look at the categories that are a little underattended.
Right.
Pro brewers do that too, right?
Yeah, they do. I mean, they certainly do. I remember 2017. So we won for Doppelbock, and we really wanted to win for Kolsch. And we didn't. And so I went around and the Kolsch's that won that year, I could actually go and taste. And I really thought about, like, what is the difference between my Kolsch and this Kolsch? And I was like, it's a little bit fruitier. So we actually made a hop change to our Kolsch. And the next year we won a bronze at GBF.
Right.
And it was funny because I upset the apple cart with all the people at the brewery. They were like, No. This isn't how the Kolsch should be.
It's less of a traditional Kolsch.
Yeah, because
it was a competition Kolsch.
Exactly. But then I was like, well, okay, so this Kolsch won the bronze, so you guys. But I totally get what you're saying. It's like, and for a style as delicate as Kolsch, like you have to be pretty to style, but just that little tweak to make it stand out.
Right.
Well, and we did that not only in our Belgian wit that you had just a second ago, but then also one of these beers that we have in front of you right now.
What do we have? Tell me which one to try first.
It's the one that's a little darker. It's the dark mild. It's called Cankles.
Okay, yeah. So
nice.
I'm in the 90th percentile. I'm a little. Need to watch what I eat a little bit too much, okay?
I'm in the 90th percentile.
Me and my daughter's head is like...
You mean you're like a high achiever?
She's in the 90th percentile. I was like, me too, baby, don't worry.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We're in this together.
Either way, so I was like, I need to... Jesus, I'm drinking so much all the time. I need a beer I can drink every day and it won't give me cankles. And so that's how I came up with the idea of this mild, really low alcohol... flavorful beer. And this won second at Nationals 2 years ago.
This is phenomenal. Mild.
So good.
Yeah, it just
phenomenal. So what did you? I can tell you what I think stands out. What did you intend to stand out in this beer to do what we're talking about here?
This beer, mild to me, is like the floor needs to fall out of the bottom of it because it needs to have a lot of flavor. But it needs to just finish really light, and it needs to not be overstated. That kind of thing. It needs to have a lot of flavor, but then not have too much. Too much body. It's just a very subtle balance.
Yeah.
It's super awesome. So what yeast do you use to ferment this?
I think it's 1028. I think that's right. The London Ale.
London Ale.
Yeah.
London Ale.
Yeah, the Y yeast 1028, yeah. I think so. Yeah.
And then
this is killer.
One of the things which we came upon that worked really well with this beer because we were doing various British crystals with it and some of those things, but then we found I can't remember it's Simpson's, isn't it? That makes the double roasted crystal.
Double roasted crystal.
They make this double roasted crystal that has all these like almost. Have you ever had like a Umi raisin cookie where the raisins are almost kind of burnt?
Yeah,
it has a little bit of that going on in the background. I remember Nick and I both just kind of chomping on the malt a little bit. And thought, okay, this could give us a little something in that mild that might kind of, make it stand out a little bit when you have somebody trying several milds in a row.
Yeah.
And they're like, ooh, what is that? It's a little bit different.
And right.
Then, like you were saying earlier, personal preference, that can draw their judges' attention more towards that beer over, maybe one of the other ones that's also well made.
So this is one of those ones, too, where it won 2 years ago. We brewed it. We got our first round results. They were like, okay, we got to just remake it for second round. This seems to be working, this idea. Yeah. So I think we brewed 4 milds in a 1 week period and just tried them. And we tried upping the gravity and trying the specialty grains. And, it's really trying them all side by side, like if you were judging them yourself. So
you guys are like high achieving homebrewers. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like nobody does that.
The fact that this beer doesn't win every single competition you ever entered it in is a lesson in judges' subjectivity.
This is my favorite beer ever.
It's so
good. I'm 100% serious. I promise.
So great.
The malt character is so lovely, and then it doesn't have sometimes you end up with like a little phenolic flavor with
none of that
English yeast, and it doesn't have any of that. It's just like
it has like a cola characteristic without all the shitty sugary gnarliness of a cola. It has a little caramel. It has a little chocolate. And by the way, it has all of these things with the bottom dropping out, as you described. Zero like residual sweetness other than those flavors coming through in your palate. This should be served in England everywhere.
Well, that was one of the things, too, is it's also a little challenging because not every judge even knows what a good mild tastes like, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not a style that you
We spoke
are
at
deeply
Nationals,
familiar
and we
with.
served this. This was like a personal, really good moment. We spoke at Nationals. We had won Ninkasi the previous year. We served this beer during our talk, and it won the next day.
Right.
Oh, my God. And your audience just melted right into their chairs while you're talking.
This guy came up to us and was like, where did you learn to make a mild like that? You should not make it this way.
Yeah.
And he was from England, and he was just, how did you do it? And I thought,
oh, my God.
I don't know.
He was surprised it was so good. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That it met no English. He was like, no American brewery can make a mild.
Can make it like this.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, just back to our kind of original question of why we're bringing this one up. Like,
I think there's more over there, too. If you want some.
I'll be having more. Yeah.
We're not going to leave any drop of this behind.
No. What does make it stand out, you've described it, I just want to bring it up again because this is important in competition, is all of those bold flavors that are true to style without leaving a bunch of residual sweetness or something that an American brewer, this is what this Brit was saying, wouldn't normally do. So in your lineup and you're thinking of judges, that's what you guys did. You were like, we're going to go for all of the stuff that should be in a mild, but leave out all the rest. And the rest is what usually gets this beer style in trouble, I think. Like, thin is a way I would describe this beer. Not flabby, but like kind of thin. It has a bunch of flavor, but finishes thin, and that's a mild. It's why you can drink 8 pints.
Yeah. You know what's shitty about that? This is the bad thing. We finished second. And the guy who won first had like a 10.58 mild. It was like this huge beer. He made a porter, right? He made a porter, and it in as a mild, and it dominated the category.
Yep.
And
because the stuff, the like sharp points of his beer stuck out more. But unfortunately, the judges then didn't pick up on probably what was left afterwards.
Sure.
The aftertaste, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate. But that's competition.
Right.
This is why we're talking about this. So,
yeah, I'm thinking you guys needed to build in a little time to come do a collab at Crooked Lane.
Oh, we can do that. We could. No take back.
And by collab, she means, can you give me this recipe and come brew this beer with me?
I'll put my stamp of approval on it or something. No, this is like we tried to brew an ESB, which was not quite up to ESB level. We had a great name for this beer. I mean, it was a good beer, but it wasn't this beer. This is like killer.
I'm glad you like it. I didn't think it was
super good.
We served it second because I was like, maybe they won't like it as much. Who knows?
No,
that's the one.
Yeah,
this is probably one of our more favorite brew day beers too, because you can, as you're saying, you can have like 5 pints of it, and you're not, sitting down and saying, "Where'd my legs go?"
Yeah. No, exactly. And when I had good milds in England, I've talked about this on the show a lot of times. Like before that, I was like, okay, yeah, that beer is. I wasn't a fan of the style. And then when I had them in England, they were like this, and I went, oh, now I get it. Why they're so wonderful. Full of flavor, light on body, disappear. That's just a good beer.
It's super good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
all right, I got to keep us moving so we can make it through the whole thing. I want to move us to some of your tips and tricks, but we should just point out quickly that there's a little luck involved in these competitions as well. There's a little luck involved in maybe where your beer is being tasted in the lineup. There's a little luck involved in how your beer was handled. So as much as we talk about all the things that you can do to stack the deck, there's just There's a bit of luck involved in your competitions, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, there's no... So, and this is more like in the evaluating results and stuff like that. So when you get back after you've decided to enter competition, and this is, maybe for a first-time enter or something like that, I always say don't be butthurt, when you don't get the results you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be cynical. I don't know how many times I've heard some brewer be a little too few deep, after the award ceremony and be like,
yeah,
I entered 15 beers and nothing won. How can that be possible? They don't know what they're talking about.
No, we've hung out with JP too. We know exactly what you're talking about. Being a little too cynical after the fact.
You don't know. You may have been the beer after an infected beer, and it's like, oh, I'm still tasting that
medicine.
It's like, where did it fall? Or like with when we entered a national, did that really big beer dominate our beer because it was so high in gravity? Right, it wasn't as balanced as ours is.
Sure.
So there's a ton of luck to it, and I think even Gordon Strong says like 30% of good beers never win. Just they completely get eliminated.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's the head BJCP judge, so whatever it is. So
because you got to take that stuff into account. And I like your, I like your advice. Just don't be too cynical about it. Enter more than one competition, as Jeff was saying too. And I think that maybe you'll find that over the course of a few competitions and a bunch of feedback, you're going to actually get some pretty accurate and good feedback.
Yeah, and if you do win. Get first. Don't think that's the be all end all.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right.
I would totally retire if I got one first place. I would. Yeah. I mean, I retired and I got a third place once ever, and I was like, "Well, that's it for me." Yeah. All right, we're gonna get into your tips and tricks. I think I'm gonna take us to a break.
Okay.
It's mostly because I have to pee, because your beer's so good that I just keep drinking it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into these Ninkasi winners' tips and tricks about how we can do better in competition. And I'm looking at my notes here. There's some stuff that maybe you guys haven't thought about before. So hang in there. We'll be right back with more on competition brewing.
Segmented, demented, fermented.
It's the session.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for hanging out with us. We got a few more things to do and a little more beer to try, including more of the mild that's in our glass.
Yeah, there just is not going to be a drop left of this mild.
No. I feel like we have to share it with my staff, though, out there. I got to try this good beer.
Screw them.
Negative.
Nope.
Beam's like, fuck them. We did have another beer in our glass of yours, though, that I wanted to try real quick before we move on. What's the second beer that you guys had poured for us? Third for the show, but they're pointing at each other to figure out who wants to talk about it.
So, well, the beer itself, it's a barrel-aged beer that we did. Nick has a beer that he does every year. Well, he started off with a beer that he did for his firstborn daughter that he did, which was a beer that involved ingredients from various countries that he had different nationalities connected with genetically.
To the family, okay.
Yeah. And then for his second daughter, he did a rye porter. And we got a hold of a rye whiskey barrel, and we put it in that first. And then there was a tragedy.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, my house burned down.
Like a real tragedy?
Yeah, like a whole thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it burned down. Yeah.
Wow.
And so
I know, too soon. It's happening left and right over here.
Holy cow.
Okay, and you lost the beer?
Yeah, we lost the barrel. Yeah,
it was gone.
Is that the only thing you remember losing, or like the only thing of importance to you in hindsight? Okay, just checking.
Just everything we own. It's all right.
Trying to figure out how far gone you are in this beer geekery.
No.
That you're like, everything else was fine. First wife.
Yeah. No, it didn't make it, so we redid it.
So redid it, but then we were looking, we thought we wanted to do a barrel again. And so got a hold of another rye whiskey barrel. But for this time, we didn't do the rye porter in it. We did an old ale, an English old ale that we did for it, and put it in there. And Nick and I had never done anything in a barrel before, and we thought, okay, let's give it a shot, see what happens. And it ended up turning out okay.
Yeah, I feel like you guys are just showing off at this point.
Yeah, that might be okay.
And I'm glad that you said old ale because there's a familiarity to it that I couldn't put my finger on. And because it's not quite musty and it's not quite old, but it's old ale is what it is. Like it's that it has that just kind of old ale to me tastes like a fresh version of old shit. Which does that sound weird? Not duty.
Yeah, that
but,
does sound weird.
Like one of the first old, like really old barley wines I was given had all of these flavors that I liked, like mustiness, grape, fig, a bunch of stuff, but that were then couched with bad old beer flavors.
With just like super oxidized old beer.
Right, but to me a good old ale has like a little fig, a little grape, a little musty, a little like all these things, but it tastes like fresh beer. That is what I think this beer has.
The best part about this beer, we entered in Indiana State Fair, and it won first. And,
in what category?
Wood aged beer.
Yeah.
And
nice.
John Blickman won second. I was like,
nicely
and I posted
done.
on his thing. I was like, the only thing better about winning first is beating John with his
Yeah.
own
Oh
beer.
my God.
You know,
I might have
renamed
thought
the beer. Got you, fucker.
I might have behaved that way about beating Beechwood with the beer.
Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit of alcohol heat in like a super appropriate way. Not too heavy on the wood. Like there's not a ton of tannins really, just kind of subtle with that. This is another. Yeah, you guys are just showing off now.
Yeah, it's like totally well integrated, balanced. How long was it in the barrel?
5 months, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a little over 5 months.
So did you guys have like a full size barrel?
No, like a little petite.
Like a
15-gallon barrel.
A 15-gallon. Okay.
And it was one where Nick actually kept it in he and his wife's bedroom.
That's the special secret.
The secret sauce.
Yeah. Some people play music to their beer.
Yeah.
Others
are up with their babies late at night while they're crying.
Yeah.
So there was this one time where we decided, okay, we want to try it, see where it's at, because you want to try it a little bit. So we.
But his wife was asleep.
Well, no, she was in the other room.
Okay.
And so we're in there. We're in their bedroom, and we got this little hammer that we're trying to get the bung out.
Yeah.
And we're banging on it a little bit.
Right.
Little bit by little bit, and then we take it out. It kind of pops out a little bit. Well, a little bit of pressure.
Okay.
It's a little odd.
Okay.
And it starts to kind of flow out a little bit. I'm like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah.
Then the geyser comes.
Oh no!
This is in the rent house that the insurance got for the birdhouse, and it was like beer everywhere. And,
oh my gosh.
So that's the secret. That's what's got to happen when you make this. No, it was. It just hadn't finished fermenting all the way, right?
Okay.
And so there was a little bit of build up,
pressure
build up there, and
his daughter came in, and he
Daddy,
said,
what happened?
Get every towel we have in the house.
And the neighbors. Yeah. Wow.
It's crazy.
Well, then this is a good sign. We've talked about this in the show before, too. Never throw away your beer until the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that could have been one of those moments you were like, well, that beer's no good.
Right.
And it came out like this. So.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fantastic.
that's good beer. All right, I want to get us through everything that we can so we can teach everybody about this. So one thing that I think you guys do is brew a lot. Like, you got to brew a lot. And our listeners who have been here for a long time know that this was Jamil's first, I think, important advice was fermentation control, temperature control. His second was like brew a ton. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the book Brewing Classic Styles came about because he just made it his mission to brew every style on Earth and enter and win. Try to get a medal for every style on Earth in a competition, which not everybody can do that except Jeff now because he doesn't have a job. But you guys brew a lot, clearly, and I think this is part of your advice.
Mm-hmm. You have to. I mean, you can't. You can't just like compare a beer that you made to the adjustment, right? So if you make a beer and then you're going to adjust it, you have to brew it, and then it has to be kind of recent in your memory, or at least somewhat. So I'd say Jeff and I brew, if it's peak time, we're brewing once a week.
Yeah, you guys were saying that. That's a lot. You try to every Tuesday or whatever, you guys are trying to brew once a week. That's really a lot.
But, when it's busy season or it was Advent or some shit or whatever Jeff has got going on at the church. I mean, we maybe brew once a month or something like that. But
right.
And then when you do competitions, we really get up for it. I mean, it's important you do a competition calendar and you kind of pick one. It's much better to get up for one comp, right? Yeah. And so we'll We'll brew 15 beers or something like that for a single comp. If that's like an unknown, I don't know why, but there's a percentage, like it's a calculated percentage almost that I think good brewers have to say, well, if I enter 8 beers, I'm going to get 2 of them that win, or 3 of them that win. So there's a percentage to it. So it's better to get up for one comp and enter.
So you're
a lot.
not just talking about brewing a lot for the experience of brewing.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about brewing a lot for a competition and
sure.
entering multiple categories.
And part of that planning, too, is you look at when the beers hit their peak. And, hoppy beers, if you're brewing them, 2 months out from the competition, you're not going to do that well because it needs to be fresh. Those hops need to pop. And so, we look at the competition calendar, when the entries need to go in, and we look and say, okay, these beers need to be brewed, a couple of months out because they need a little bit more time on them, or they're lagers. These ones need a little bit closer. And then we usually have times where we're brewing up to a couple of weeks right before the competition.
Yeah.
Kankles gets brewed, about a week and a half, 2 weeks usually before the entries are due.
Before you have to ship them out? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are writing out a schedule for every competition. Mm-hmm. Now let's take, Bluebonnet. Why not? You're writing out a schedule. You're going to go, well, here's all the styles we want to brew. Let's call it 15 different styles. And then you just schedule that out.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's like when Nick and I get back, we got to brew Jeffsticles, which is the dark strong, the quad.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we brewed on his birthday. It's Jeffsticle, but we call it Jeffsticles. So it's his birthday.
Jeffsticles.
We had to edit that for the newspaper when it.
Yeah. They come and interview the priest. They're like, "What's the beer name?" And I'm like,
"You got fired."
Jeffsticles.
It's
I know you didn't get fired.
But
even Jeff's tickle is inappropriate.
Yeah,
Jeff's tickle. Yeah, actually, that's even worse.
That might be worse.
You have to be more careful about
Jeff's
that.
tickle is so good.
That's not good.
What did you
show us on the bear?
You're like, no.
It's
what
definitely
did you?
not that.
What did you edit it to for the article?
Justicle, like festicle.
I see. Okay,
that was what it was supposed to be, but
I guarantee everybody read that as Jeffsticles.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
So we're brewing that one for Bluebonnet when we get back.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of those other things that we'll get going for Bluebonnet.
And don't think we're brewing like 15 beers in a month. We'll say like...
Right, you're spacing this out.
We still have some sort of a life, I think, right? I think we do at least.
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, it doesn't. But, we'll say like, oh, we want to get our entries up for Bluebonnet or Dixie Cup or whatever's coming up.
Yeah.
So we'll brew some lagers that can age a little bit.
Yeah.
Like this wood age beer, we only made this because we need some more stuff that'll just age and we can put in because we're having to brew too much for a competition.
What are you fermenting all this in? Carboys? Because I know you don't have this many stainless temperature-controlled chronicles sitting around.
No, it's just carboys and fridges.
Yeah. And chest freezers and stuff?
Just a dedicated refrigerator you've got, just a carboy stuck in there.
Okay, but you guys have I'm just trying to picture your lead up to you have to. We've already talked about how important temperature control fermentation is. So everything you're putting in a carboy is going into something. Mm-hmm. So you just also then space it out enough. It's not just time for the beer, but how much space you have to put carboys in temperature control.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot like running a brewery.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of logistics to it.
Absolutely.
I do have a very understanding wife and 4 fridges in my garage. Let's not undersell that.
Yeah.
So that is what it is. So, we'll, let's say we're going to brew 6 beers or something like that for the ales that have to be ready kind of in a very specific time. Mm-hmm. You say okay, you do have to make some concessions. We still are home brewers. So we'll say, okay, we'll keep the first week and primary temperature controlled, then move it out into even just a closet or something like that where we can let it
and
kind of
that's the most important time anyway,
right.
So
and then but we're cold crashing everything in there and stuff like that. So.
And then everything sits in a keg basically in cold
space
until it's time to ship out as well.
Yeah, we don't bottle anything.
We don't bottle condition anything, but then we will sometimes, if we're in need of keg or space, we will go ahead and bottle the ones that we're wanting to use for competition, and then the rest of it we'll drink or we'll maybe put in a smaller keg or something like that. We've got a few 2.5 and 3 gallon kegs that we'll put stuff in.
This sounds like a lot of beer. I'm thinking you got in trouble for using the church's walk-in from time to time, because I know you guys had a walk-in if you're putting on these big old dinners and stuff. Did you used to store beer at the church?
Answer wisely.
Yeah. I don't think you're allowed to lie.
I'm trying to think if I ever did.
I don't think so.
I don't think
this sounds like an awful lot of beer between the two of you.
I mean, because Nick has several fridges. I had 2 fridges and 2 kegerators.
Okay, yeah.
And so, I mean, it wasn't too hard to find places to store all this stuff.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I know it sounds like more than it is. It is a lot, but I mean, it's doable with a couple fridges and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a lot of times I'd ask people at my church, say if you have a fridge you're getting rid of, let me know.
Yeah.
And
we definitely give away more beer than we drink.
Okay, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then do you also brew beers that you could enter across multiple categories? Is that part of your strategy here? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes what we will do is we'll have beers that we will brew that we know can be right there on the line between categories. And so we'll brew them and enter them in both.
Okay.
We'll have something that is right there, that it's kind of light for an IPA, but a little bit strong for a pale ale, but we'll enter it in both.
Yeah.
Or we'll have a Scottish ale that we'll do.
This happens on the pro side too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have a double IPA that I sometimes
have.
enter as a single.
Yeah,
Wookiee Dust.
Yeah, we have a beer called Wookiee Dust, and it's it's one of those beers that's really a double. And it wins. I mean, it wins as a double. It rarely it'll win as an IPA, though, too.
Yep.
Okay. But it probably scores well as an IPA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll do that. So that saves a little space also.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one thing, a couple of things I wanted to get into the nitty-gritty with you guys is about recipe formulation and choosing ingredients. And you mentioned early on being particular about your ingredients. With the first beer that we tried with the wit and coriander being something that was exceptional. But you even mentioned that not all 2-row is alike. You like a certain 2-row. So can we talk about recipe formulation and how you guys have ended up choosing ingredients or how people should choose ingredients?
Sure.
I would say on the ingredients choice, and I'll let you talk about recipe formulation.
Okay.
But I don't get it. If I don't understand how a lot of home brewers kind of approach the idea. They just go into the store, say, give me Mosaic, it's good to go, and then there's no year on it or anything like that.
Yeah.
You have no idea. I mean, John Mallett and all these brewers are going up to, the hop harvest and smelling 50 different Mosaics to make sure they've got just the one they want, right? So,
and not even, by the way, small brewers get the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Never mind home brewers.
Yeah, so it's important to just kind of say, okay, what is this? So the best thing for us is we use a lot of online vendors who have a crop in a year, and you can kind of repeat it that way.
Okay.
Get what you want as opposed to just going into the store. And, we try to not take for granted, you just say, I need 2-row. I mean, there's some limitations. We are home brewers, and you walk into the store, and the guy's like, we just don't have it. We're out,
Yeah.
So you do have to make some concessions. But we try to always pick our ingredients. And we're always looking for something new, like with the mild. We like that double roasted crystal, right? Mm-hmm. So if you kind of keep your ear to the ground and find things that come out that way and say, okay, this is a beer, or it's something that is relatively new, some of these specialty malts that come out, like the Midnight Wheat when we won for the black IPA, and then this other one. So that helps because you can give yourself a slight advantage. There's just a lot of advances in technology right now. So
I might throw a little plug for Yakima Chief Hops while you're at this, because they just opened their online store at this year's HomebrewCon, actually. Mm-hmm. So you can buy direct from Yakima Chief Hops, and they have a lot of information about the lot numbers and things like that. Mm-hmm. So even if you were ever to ask your favorite commercial brewer, what was that awesome Mosaic? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you can go do that exactly through Yakima Chief, but they put the lot information up there so you could maybe find it. You could compare. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good point. It's not like you can just go in and start opening a bunch of 4-ounce bags of hops at your local homebrew shop all the time, although some might let you do it. But it might be worth the money to buy a 4-ounce bag of hops and give it a smell and before you decide to buy the rest for your brew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, is that something you would do?
For us, we're brewing so much anyway. We have to buy some bulk, right? So we buy online just usually at 1 pound at a time.
Yeah.
So that it's one of those things where it's important that you save the money there too, and on top of that, you're getting a better product. So it's just one of those things.
Well, a lot of times homebrewers don't realize how much the hop harvest will vary from year to year. But it's like, okay, folks, this is a food product.
Yeah.
And food products vary, whether we want to realize it or not. They really do.
Yeah.
And we had a beer that we used that had quite a bit of Centennial hops in it, and got the next year's harvest Centennial, and we made the beer, and we're like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
And we realized it was just that the Centennial hops had changed just a little bit.
Oh man, of course.
And it can be very important on sourcing that.
So I like this point. This is a great point. You guys have decided on your favorite, like 2-row. You
Correct.
just this is by trial and error, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. And RAR is yours.
Yes, I mean, and that's no slight on any of the other malts
Sure,
out
yeah.
there. But you find a malt that has the flavor profile that you're wanting, that you're comfortable with. You know how the malt acts,
Yeah.
and, everything like that, or during the mashing process and everything like that, and you stick with it as much as you can. And then we do that as all, like I said, along with the hops and some of the other stuff too.
Yeah.
But when we have our recipe formulation, what we do, we're big on is, as we were mentioning earlier, the idea of tasting the commercial examples first. You taste the commercial examples. You look up, trusted recipes that are out there, whether it be, from Jamil's book or Gordon Strong's or some of the other people who have written, some wonderful books out there.
Yeah.
You look at those resources. You don't just go to a random forum and say, "Oh yeah, here's somebody who made a cream ale."
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, another shameless plug, but this is more for the time that Jamil and Tasty spent on the Can You Brew It series that they did. I think they did that for over 3 years. You can search on our website. So if one of those beers is in the BJCP, if you search our website and find that they did it, they actually talked to the brewer and got the exact recipe from that brewer.
That show,
So I like your idea that just go use all the resources you can.
There's a lot out there.
As you're designing your own beer.
Mm-hmm.
People ask us all the time, they're like, how did you get to this level so fast where you won this award? And our cover of Brewing Classic Styles is ripped off.
As it should be, yeah.
That was the starting point, and it was like, our favorite IPA was like Celebration, so we go look up Can You Brew It, and then just kind of start there, and it's like, are you retarded not to use these
just
resources?
to use
like,
it? Yeah.
Not?
Well, also people are like, well, I don't like the Brewing Network because they say dick or whatever. But Jamil and Tasty spent so much. Well, first of all, Jamil and Palmer spent so much time on that book.
Yeah.
Then Jamil and Tasty spent so much time on that show. And one of the criticisms they got, because the show's called Can You Brew It? One of the criticisms they would get is like, well, you're interviewing the brewer about the recipe. Of course, you could brew it after that. Truth be told, they would fail all the time because of all these other variables we've been discussing. But anyhow, in the meantime, what you ended up with was an accurate recipe delivered from the brewer's mouth. It was never like they sent it in on paper. Jamil would sit there on the microphone and go, which 2-row did you use? Which yeast did you use? How much hops? It was straight from the horse's mouth, basically. So I like your guys' approach here, where you just all of the it's not just Brewing Network stuff. All of the resources available to you, use them.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people realize, but those award-winning recipes every year at NHC are posted every year.
Oh, right.
So
I did not know that,
our recipes are right there.
That's
right?
cool.
There's no so when we go to make something for nationals. We'll look and say, who won last year? What did they do?
I did not know that.
Well, so you guys have gone through designing great beers too, I think. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
So it gives you even a range. It'll what he's done, and I'm super proud to say we're going to be in the next edition of this because he reached out and got our recipe for our Doppelbock, which I'm
nice.
So
Very
it's
nice.
like my world has come full circle, but. It gives a range for each of the malts that are used in the top 20 recipes that he collected, and I think that's super helpful because when you're starting to do recipes, you don't want to start from scratch. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. You're trying to match a style.
Yeah.
I think that's a misconception. Is people always think I got to start from nothing and make something that's all my own.
Yeah.
Well, if you do that, you're probably going to miss the mark by a country mile, and you're going to have to dial it back.
Yeah.
So, start from something that's going to meet the range of what is acceptable for that style, and then make it your own. You know, don't you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Sure. Yeah, you're starting. You're adding 6 months or whatever to the process.
And what we'll also do is when you have homebrewers that you've met that have done well in competitions, you talk to them. And they're not little demigods that you can't approach and talk with. I mean, ask them, say, what did you do for this? And most of them are very open. Will say, well, this is what I do. This is part of my process. This is what I do differently, and learn from that. Sure. And you take that and you move forward when you start putting together your recipe. Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid of some trial and error. Sure. Tasting the malt, smelling the hops, doing all of those things, and then tasting throughout your process. That's something which Nick and I are big on as well. We taste throughout, all the way from the point where, we're tasting the wort as it's running off into the kettle. We're tasting it as it's boiled after a little while. We taste it after we've chilled. We've tasted after it's started fermentation. And a lot of that has helped us to learn not only how the beer will develop, but then also some little things here and there where Nick has had some panic moments where we noticed with a couple of our lagers we were pitching White Labs 833, the box strain, and we tasted it and we're like, holy mackerel. It smells and tastes like wet dog. Uh-oh. Yeah. What happened? Would we do this and that? and it was something we found that was within our process that just would happen in the fermentation.
And then go away.
They'd go away. Yeah. And the beer came out spectacular. Yep. Yeah. And so, tasting that, we knew, okay, here's going through the wet dog phase. And, but it'll all turn out fine. Yeah. And so tasting it throughout the process is very important. Tasting it after you've made it, tasting it as it ages, all those things. Sure. And tasting it critically. And then going back to the styles and tasting your beer that you made. Against the styles again and say, okay, did we hit the mark? Did we not?
Right. Yeah. You guys are spending a lot of time with your beer. And I think that's important to point out that so you can...
Maybe that's good why I never did swipe right.
You can keep yourself busy. You might do well in competition by spending less time, but I think that anybody I've ever met who's won in Kasi is spending this amount of time and really following this detailed of a process to do that. All right. Anything else we want to wrap up with? Anything that we didn't cover that you guys really want to make sure we get in there?
Water's important.
Okay. Water's the single biggest thing we've ever done to our beer. I think that upped the quality.
The adjustment to water?
So we start with RO water, 100% on every recipe, and we build with minerals and stuff like that.
Really? So building to style for every single one you do.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And for us in particular, it's important because in Texas, because we don't have, water is a little bit scarce in some ways, and various cities are drawing from different lakes and different supplies all the time. And so, you can have your water tested 1 month, and it's going to test differently the next month and differently the month after that. Okay. And so we do RO water, build it up, and we noticed our beer took just like an astronomical leap forward in its quality.
Okay.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, I can believe that. I think this mild is probably one of your best examples of that because it's such a subtle, delicate beer that I bet this beer was not nearly as good before you guys adjusted your water to
I'm sure.
To be
and
this.
It was one of those things. So that I can't think of too much other stuff. I think a lot of people might be turned off by this, and then at the same because it just seems like too much for some people, right? Like I don't have that level of commitment to this, or it's just a fun hobby. But then there's those crazies out there, like the rest of us. It's just one of those things. Everybody's got their little rabbit hole to go down.
Well, let's be clear. You wouldn't have listened to this whole episode if you weren't interested in this part. So everybody who's tuned in this far is very, very interested in what you're talking about. They are beer geeks in this sense. So it's great advice and very detailed.
Hopefully it's not just my mom.
We are writing this down. There'll be a less scattered, squeaky voice version of this. In 6 months, we're writing an article for Brew Your Own magazine on this whole topic.
Oh, great!
And we probably will talk about it too at nationals this year. in Nashville, I think. So.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm excited about Nashville.
Yeah.
You can sign up for Brew Your Own magazine right on the Brewing Network homepage. It's on the left side. Click Brew Your Own.
Mm-hmm.
You get a great subscription to a very good magazine. So that's cool. You guys are going to. So most of what we talked about today will be in a concise article there. Yeah.
And you can follow us on our homebrew club is Draft Punk. There's 3 of us. Mm-hmm. There's my friend Cameron who makes a
3.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
3.
Yeah.
How did I end up with a T-shirt of yours 10 years ago?
I own a
if there's
screen printing
just 3
company.
of you,
I just float them
point.
out. Yeah.
I feel like it was hand given to me, though. Did I just meet you?
I think when you came to Bluebonnet,
that's what it was.
Gave it away.
I still have that shirt somewhere.
Yeah, I brought you a new shirt.
You did?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Good, because when I say somewhere, I mean I don't know where. But it was my favorite.
Yeah, I got one of those, and then like I said, you can follow us on Instagram. It's Draft Punk Beer, I think, and then we have a little blog we're trying to get started, Draft Punk.
Nice.
.beer. So it's one of those things. I don't know where we're going with this thing, but we're trying to figure out different things to do. So,
at least one of you needs a job now. So maybe see if you guys open a brewery. Who knows?
Yeah, I feel like if you ever decide to open a brewery, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, it's going to be good beer.
You've laid the groundwork.
Well, thanks, but I mean, we're having a lot of fun and enjoying things, just homebrewing and being in the homebrew world.
Yeah, I hate that people move out of this space so quickly. It's like, why? Have fun with it.
You're right.
Yeah.
Jamil, by the way, before he opened a brewery, didn't take his own advice. Said the same thing. He was like, "Don't do it. You just enjoy your time, enjoy your hobby, enjoy the joy that it brings you, and don't make too much of it. You already have a entrepreneur job.
Yeah.
So, how long's your print shop been open?
15 years. Yeah.
Oh, so you're practically unemployed. You make your own schedule. You do what you want to do.
Yeah. So it is what it is.
Well, listen, gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out and teaching us about homebrewing and for sharing your beer.
Sure.
That was a lot of fun. Jeff, listen, I could talk to you for days, man. I let you off easy. It's a fascinating story.
Yeah, we can always come back.
You know what? You should. In fact, we, just behind the curtain a little bit for our listeners. Actually, I spoke to Nick at HomebrewCon, who just had great ideas, and then sent us a list of topics, which Bev sent to me like, "Hey, what do you want to cover with these guys?" And my answer was, "I want to cover every single topic. So why don't we just start with one?" So I would love to have you back.
Sure.
You don't always have to fly out, although it's nice to see you. I'm going to be traveling a little bit, so maybe I'll come do one in Texas with you guys.
Sure,
we can record some. But you have a lot of knowledge to share, and
Yeah, I hope, it just seems like there's so many professional brewers out there right now. They're all going, so we want to see people stay in this community.
In the homebrew side.
Come on, Mike.
Yeah, stay with the homebrewers. I do have to ask you this, Jeff. Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't worry. This one's not all weird or anything.
Okay.
I'm curious what is a skill set for you? What kind of jobs do you look for after being a priest for so long?
Well, that's an interesting
What does
question.
the resume look like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There must be something. There's got to be some
18-year gap.
Well, or not. I'm thinking there's stuff I don't think about. Like maybe there's a business degree in there. Like I don't know what.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as I had to look at that as I started for the very first time writing a resume. I'd never done that. I went into seminary at 18, 9 years of seminary education and schooling, and then going to priesthood, 18 years of that.
Yeah.
So 27 years of my life. I'm 45 now.
I mean, you're basically a PhD, right?
Well, I mean, kind of. Just in what? What did you discover as you looked at that?
He has a master's in church history.
Jesus.
Well, so
Jesus.
PhD.
Yeah. Which
Jeff likes Jeebus.
Which works, but not everywhere.
Well, and so I started looking at it, and I talked to a couple of friends, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I have to offer. And they said, okay, some of it is looking at what you did and realizing that there are real-world applications for it. And I said,
right.
Like what? And they said, okay, well, tell me on the practical side what you did at the parish. How big was your budget? I said, well, we had a $3.5 million budget for the church, $2.5 million for the school. It was pre-K 3 through 8.
Right.
And, and they said, well, did you do hiring and firing? I said, well, yeah, I had to do that. And they said, okay. They said, did you manage budget? Yeah, I had managed that large budget. I had to not only set the budget, manage it, do things like that. And you oversaw the finances. Yes. And they said, you've got a lot of things which were skills that you used that could be used in the business world. Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm getting at, is that there's probably a whole feature set that people will be like, he ran a very large company or a very large corporation. Like there's a number of ways, depending on who the employer is, would look at it and go, this person's no slouch. He had to run a fairly large organization. That's kind of what I was asking about, is what you thought about.
And then, I'm very comfortable speaking to people. I had...
managing different personalities?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good Lord, if you don't mind me saying. But good Lord, did you have to manage some personalities, I bet.
There were some challenges.
You're probably a management rock star, actually.
But then, and also just, dealing not only with that, but then... dealing with the fact of every weekend coming up, talking in front of several thousand people.
Yeah,
preparing like a huge presentation, basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to keep me up to date. I'm very curious how this goes for you. I think somebody who hires you is in for a treat. I think you.
I hope so.
Well, because also what you've done is so multifaceted, and I think that's kind of difficult to find. It's hard to this is an obvious statement. It's hard to find good employees, especially somebody who's like well rounded. And I think that this is sounds like boot camp for management to me, like some serious boot camp for management. I wish you so much luck.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
that.
Yeah, man. And Nick, thank you for reaching out to me, following up, and putting this together. I look forward to our next topics.
Sounds great.
Yeah, you will hear from us.
Awesome.
All right, I have to do a couple other things before we go. Jeff, what do you know about manscaping?
That's what I was afraid. I was
curious,
there's a man. There's going to be manscaping.
Have you
is
ever,
this where the Adam and Eve thing comes in?
Well, Adam and Eve isn't with us anymore.
I just want to make sure.
But Manscaped is. And
Me and Bev were like, no.
I mean, I'm curious, Father Beer. Have you ever manscaped before?
Jeff, don't answer. Don't answer, Jeff. It's a trick. It's a trick.
Do you know what it is?
Stop it.
Do you know what it is?
I have heard of it.
Okay. So, well, listen, right now that you're out in the world with the rest of us, if you were to go to manscaped.com.
I didn't know there's a website, though.
Oh, there's a whole website. In fact, they have this entire product you can buy. It's called the Perfect Package 2.0.
Oh, no.
And within the Perfect Package, you're going to find they have an electric trimmer, which is waterproof and skin safe. It's called the Lawnmower 2.0. So you can do it right in the shower, Father. Does it make it worse that I keep throwing? Vivo's losing it behind you.
She's seriously trying to find something to hide behind.
I took my headphones off.
That's okay.
She's like, nope, done.
See, I think that Jeff and I would have been friends in his church because I'm a bit like Nick. I wouldn't have been afraid. I'm not like I have a lot of respect, but I'm not like afraid to have real conversations with real people.
But
I'm
this
sorry,
would
but
have
you're talking
required
about
you to go to church.
Okay, yes. And also, this is not a conversation you just spark up with a new friend.
Hey, Father, how do you trim your balls?
Exactly. Thank you, Nick. But yeah.
I would have appreciated never, ever hearing that.
Listen, the thing
Somebody
is,
cares.
Jeff, the thing is, you got to start thinking about this stuff now, man. It's a harsh world out there, and I'm trying to help. In fact, there are two stories I want to follow with Jeff. I want to follow his career path and his manscaping path as time goes on. Anyhow, if you go and order the Perfect Package 2.0, you get the electric trimmer, which is waterproof and skin safe, and you'll create less mess because you're in the shower. It also comes with their crop preserver, which is an anti-chafing deodorant and moisturizer, so you can use that. You don't just have to deodorize your armpits anymore. And then finally, it actually includes anti-chafing performance boxer briefs.
What? I haven't heard about these.
Yeah, this is new. This is new in the Perfect Package 2.0 package.
So are they saying that the Perfect Package 1.0 was not quite perfect?
They're saying
they need to upgrade.
I mean, we can always improve on things.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that the performance briefs would even be good in the church. I mean, you guys had to wear some like very warm clothing, like a whole. I've been to mass, and I'm thinking, yeah, I know. Can you believe it? Yeah. I had to more than once.
Okay.
I always liked Mass, actually. My mom
really
didn't
nice.
take me, but I would go when I would go back east. And my Aunt Gloria, I have my Italian family. They're like Italian Roman Catholics out there. So Auntie Gloria and Uncle Tony would take me. Auntie Lola was there. Uncle Guido had to go. I'm not making this shit up right now. Anyhow, you can get 20% off all of this and free shipping when you use coupon code BREWING. Write it down, Father. Brewing at manscaped.com, and your balls will thank you. That's from Manscaped. If that's not the best read that they have ever gotten from a sponsor before.
I mean, talking about reaching out to the crowd that didn't know about you yet. I mean,
exactly.
That's like building a bridge.
I'm going to write to them personally. I actually have to send them when I do the read. I'm going to be like, listen, has anybody you sponsored ever had a former priest in their room that you talked about manscaping with? And you might have just gotten me signed up for like years. You didn't even have to do anything except for be here.
You might get a free Man's Perfect Package 2.0
my God.
coming.
They're going to write back and they'll be like, give us his address.
We were all horrified, but now we're kind of delighted.
Nope, still horrified.
Still horrified.
Still horrified.
Bev can't handle it.
Yeah, Bev has standards. You know,
you're wonderful. You're a good sport. Everybody is, and a lot of fun hanging out with you. I thought there was a different show on next week than is on my calendar.
There was a scheduling confusion, so
now it's Ogo Pogo Brewing.
It's Ogo Pogo Brewing in studio.
Ogo Pogo Brewing on the show next week. I don't think I'm here. I think I'm missing next.
You're not here.
So
hang on.
Good luck with that. I'm glad because the other one we had planned was with Flat Tail, and I want to be back here for that.
Yeah.
Is that getting scheduled again soon?
I'm hoping. I'm working on it.
Because I see some dates in December, so I hope we're going to fill it in.
No, there's
some
another
dates that need to be filled in December.
There's another date in November that I'm holding for it.
Got it. Okay.
Excuse me. Bless you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jeff.
That means a lot.
That means a lot coming from you.
It's like, it just
An awful
felt
lot.
good even.
Yeah,
Nobody said that to me in ages.
the joy washed over.
Yeah. You want to hear about how I almost got arrested this week, Jeff? No, I already told that story. You're going to have to go back to the beginning. All right. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it again so very, very much. We're going to enjoy some beer with you after the show here. I'll get us off air. I don't have JP here to do all the normal things that he does, but who really listens to that stuff anyway, right? All right. Let's just play his outro song. And the folks will be back on the show next week. I believe Sully is in studio next week, right?
I think so.
With Ogo Pogo Brewing. Go search for Draft Punk. You can learn about what they're doing. And there was another website you gave, I thought, for updates and information.
Draftpunk.beer.
Just
That's the
okay.
website, yeah.
Go check it out. And look out for their upcoming article in Brew Your Own magazine. Both Nick and Jeff writing that so that you can learn all of this there. But you will have heard it first here. On
Sure,
the Brew
yeah.
Your Own,
Indeed.
which I like.
Sure.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves.
JP's an asshole. Justin's a nice guy and winning the race. JP does great as his cherry